Hello there. Is that John Bua of
Yeah,
John's
how you doing?
Lumbox?
How you doing? I'm
Not
feeling
too
too.
bad, not too bad. Good to see you up bright and early on a Saturday morning.
Yep, almost slept in.
Almost slept in. God bless you. Tell you what, let's just get you another few moments respite by doing this. Gosh, that looks so dramatic. we like to do a bit of that. Now, it is an honour and pleasure to have you here, John's
Thank you.
Lumbox and John Bua. It really is. We've really enjoyed your show. We usually listen to it in the bath. Strange though that is, folks, don't take it the wrong way, but it's just John's Lumbox show is it's almost very fatherly, patriarchal, and just comfortable. It's like walking into your local comic shop and thinking, I'm with somebody who gets me, gets his audience, and he's one of us, you know?
Thanks. That's what I'm trying for. I'm trying. I created the whole show because during COVID, everybody was locked down, and I didn't know if there was any comic book stores in my new area that I just moved in. So I wanted to be like, all right, let's replicate that whole going to the comic book thing and talking about comics with friends once a week or so. So it's glad to see. And forgive my voice.
Oh, no problem.
Yesterday at work, there was guys welding,
Oh, yeah.
and there was just like a blue fume cloud, and I had to go through and get it. And I
Oh,
just took, I was moving something heavy, and I took a deep breath in, and I just think it started something. I thought it was
just
going to go away, but it's getting worse.
just caught your lungs or something, whatever that
Yeah, yeah.
will blow up, yeah. And sometimes we just trying to hold your breath to go past it, and all of a sudden you've got to breathe, and then you've sucked a bit
Just
of air in there, haven't you?
just
Bad
drives
air.
me nuts because they got safety guys that go around and where's your hard hat? Where's your safety glasses? I'm like, where's the vents? You know,
Yeah,
they enforce all the easy, cheap solutions, but I,
I think that's the
these poor
era of
welders,
what we're living in, isn't it?
how are they alive doing that all day long?
Well, yes, gosh, I mean, your lungs taking welding over so many years. We know of someone who did that all their life and eventually gets the lungs.
Yep.
Well, it's great that you came here on our show and that you've made it. It's a pleasure and a privilege,
Thank you.
and it's a personal honor. We've been looking forward to seeing you for a while. Thinking, can we get him on this show? So anyway, folks, we've got the 5 pillars of storytelling live. It's Azrael chats to John Bua. We're all about the art, the comics, movies, games, and toys. It's Saturday, the 12th of April, we think. It's the Heroic Tales, issue 2, actually, we're going to be chatting about. It's 2 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, London, UK. That's Eastern Standard Time, USA, 9 a.m., we do believe, John.
Yep.
And we do a host introduction, and then we talk about our guest in terms of what they've been up to over the course of their comics career, just to show them that they've had an impact on us, all of us, yeah? So host introduction, hello there, welcome to the 5 Pillars of Storytelling Live. Azrael, look into that little green light, so that you're making a connection with your audience. Eye contact's important. And we talk about art, comics, movies, games, and toys. Yes, as if you're at your local comic book shop, full enough. I'm your host, Azrael. My secret identity is Carl Prometheus, storyteller, artist, and promoter of indie creators, indie comics, and the indie comic community, trying to help grow that, do our humble bit. Our style is universal. We can be watched by creative families. We don't do swearing and silly drama. We want creative adults and the creative younglings to learn how to create comics, because in the mid-80s, this was impossible. There was no Star Trek technology then. And a little Kyle would have been wondering, well, how do you do that? Do you stick together 6 A4 pages of drawings, do a separate drawing in each one, and somehow glue it all together? The naive ideas you have when you're young. So our motto is to listen, to learn, and share. And we've got an inspiring quote, seeing as we've got an inspiring patriarchal figure on our show. Comics are an international language. They can cross boundaries and generations. Comics are a bridge between all cultures by the legendary Tezuka. Now, guest introduction is our last bit of verbosity before we sit in our hands, be very quiet, and listen to somebody who's certainly a prodigious, a masterful storyteller. Our guest introduction this time is the one and only John Bua. We've got a little bit of prose for him. You can find him at John's Longbox on at Centurion 2000 on X. As far as our reconnaissance team could make out, and from listening to John's Longbox in the bath, John Bua was educated in the classics. He's a construction worker, so those are twin pillars there that tell a lot about the man and his character. And he has RPGs, role-playing sessions with his friends. We have a bit of a history of that, so we can understand his love for that. It's storytelling, isn't it? It's in the most powerful area of all, the imagination, yeah? He's a comic book writer and creator of Heroic Tales. The first campaign did fantastically well for a debut comic. It's certainly something that we backed. We've got it, you know what I mean? And we'll have to talk about the deer thing. I mean, that's one way to get a steak. The patriarch and his own universe. So, Canton, folks, he's a comic writer and creator of Heroic Tales, the patriarch, and his own universe, which we do believe has been partially explored with his RPG mates over the years. His anticipated, hotly anticipated, we might add, Heroic Tales 2 indie comic is crowdfunding on Fund My Comic Now. John's Longbox is a highly regarded and fondly regarded community podcast with 1,400 videos and over 1,600 subs. We remember when he was just below 800, and we gave him one sub to help him along on X. And where John talks about his collection of over 50,000 comics, well, there's your retirement fund right there. Forget about your pension. That is your pension. His humble enthusiasm, we call it the chat in a comic shop style, has seen such luminaries such as Jim Shooter, ex-boss of Marvel Comics, Chuck Dixon, who's rocking that house with The Horseman, a book that we're interested in having a look at, actually. It's the one Rippaverse book that we think, yeah, we've got the Iceland thing, but and that was not bad. I thought that was okay. But that horse, yeah. Walter Simonson, the guy who did that epic Thor run.
Yep.
Mark Miller, John was trying his best to the show for that one, and unfortunately had an accident. We'll talk about that and see if he's fully recovered. And he's even had the hot man of the moment out July in the show as well. I mean, that is what you call a elect bunch of guests. His immutable motto and endearing motto, in our view, it's about comics, speaks for his love of storytelling. Welcome to John Bua.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
I say this all the time. I'm not good with praise and compliments. You know, when you grow up in a Irish, Italian, Catholic family from New York, you know, whenever somebody likes you, they insult you. So when people say nice things about you, you're like, what do you want? You know? So thanks. I get squished.
In your case, your mere presence will more than suffice. You know what I mean? That is just what we want. Just you for yourself. Yeah, it doesn't have to be anything else. Just that's why we I think people gravitate towards you, because you're just yourself. And in our own view, we've almost taken a lifetime to try and be ourselves. So we admire somebody who's genuinely authentic. Right then, hot news off the presses, folks. Got to include this. Heroic Tales Comic Book 2. Two heroes, two sides, one bold story. It got 50 backers already, and we'll be backing it real soon. So it'll have 51. It's in dollar amounts, folks, $1,624 raised in 6 days. Talk about a drag race. I mean, scorching the tires on the wheels. I mean,
this is old. I got 8 more backers, and it's up to 1,800 now.
1,800 now, so it's got
8 more. Last night I was on the Friday nights, and as they were talking about it, it was just bing, 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 bing. Yeah, so
John's Longbox is master of the Bing. He's got 106 days to go as well, folks. So you can only imagine where this thing's going to go. And I tell you what, Renzo's between John's love of storytelling, and Renzo's shining like the gleaming sun art, and the rest of his creative team, we think this book is going places.
Yeah,
now we've gone to, the big 5 questions we've got for you, John, and we'll start off with a nice easy one for you. Who is John Bua?
Who am I? I don't even exist. I'm an AI generated by Elon Musk to infiltrate and destroy. Now, I'm just a kid from New York who's always liked comics. Um, where do you start? The story I always tell is that I couldn't read in kindergarten. I was in public school, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and I couldn't read. And at that point, my mom put me in Catholic school. Now I wonder if she realized that I was struggling or whatever. So she changed. I never asked her, but so now I'm in a new school. Don't know anybody, and I'm in the bottom reading group. And the story that I always tell is that my we Catholic schools are notorious for not having enough material, so I had to share a reading book with the kid. There was like 18 books, but there was like 40 kids in the class. So I'm partnered up with this kid Jordan, and Jordan would go to the bathroom in the classroom. There was a bathroom in the back of the class, but he would come out with his pants down and his underwear down and scream, "Wipe my hiney!" This was in third grade, and then he would sit down next to me, and I'm like, I have a problem. You know what I mean? Like nobody ever told me, but
Just a bit.
you're like, what's wrong with me? And I made friends with other kids, and they were constantly reading comics. They were talking about the Beyonder, not the Beyonder at the time. They were talking about Galactus and the Punisher and the Inhumans, And I'm like, what are you talking? So they show me comics. Now, also keep in mind, there was always comics at my house. In America, this is 1974. There was always comics. I had older brothers, sisters, Mad magazines, but I never read them. You look at them, they're Spider-Man or whatever. So I started hanging out with them. I started looking at comics, like literally just looking at comics. But they were talking about them in detail, and I started to realize I can't read because, after school you don't do math. You're gonna go hang out with your friends and do math problems. After school I wasn't gonna read either. That was something you do in school. After school you played. Reading was a school activity, just like math. But now I had something that I wanted to. So by the end of the year, I was moved up to the first reading group, and I remember I was sharing a book with this girl Marianne, and Marianne was the girl that the teacher always picked to write your name on the board when kids, if like the teacher has to go to the bathroom, so she would leave. Marianne, write the kids' names on the board who are misbehaving. So now I'm sitting next to the snitch, so who gets the perfect grades and everything like that, does everything perfect, always helping the teacher with the little teacher's pets. I'm like, at least she could wipe her hiney, you know what I mean? So I'm moving up in the world, and I owe it all to comics now. So by fifth grade, I was going to the library, and I was getting like big heavy books. I remember I got the Thomas Mallory's Lamort the Arthur, big heavy book, and I was taking notes and everything. And I remember the school counselor called me to the office because she found one of my index cards and was quizzing me. And I remember I was like, "Am I in trouble?" And she was like, "No, no, But I went from a kid who couldn't read to a kid who was taking like college level books and writing notes and everything, and it's all comics. I realized that comics were fun. So I do I blame the school? I don't know. I kind of blame the kids that I made friends with that got me into comics.
Yeah.
And then, from third grade on, I have every comic I've ever bought, with the exception of one long box that disappeared. I think somebody stole it. But other than that, I have friends. They were like, yeah, if I kept all the comics that I bought, I would have just as many comics. But they had kids. They sold comics in hard times or whatever, But I just always made do. I always made do, and I never sold my comics. So that's pretty much me. I was, I did a lot of things in life. I started college late. I worked in a pizzeria for years. It's a walking stereotype. A New Yorker, Italian New Yorker, can spin pizza in the air and all that. And that didn't do too well. So I decided to go to college. I moved across the country. I lived out in New Mexico for a couple of years. That was a lot of fun. Yeah. Came back to New York, became a school teacher, and I hated it. I was miserable. Oh my God, I was just miserable. So I was like, I can't do this for the rest of my life. You know,
No.
so I at 35 I became a construction worker, and I've been a construction worker ever since. So that's it. And then one day, COVID happened, and you isolated. My wife and I are living in Queens.
Queensland.
People, yeah, no, Flushing, Queens, and where Peter Parker lived in the comic books.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and we're walking around. My wife and I were walking around. People were pulling up in cars. Put a mask on. I'm like, I'm walking around with my wife.
In
Like,
fresh air.
do I have to wear a mask? Like when I'm inside with her? Why do I was like, we got to get out of here. This is insane. We didn't know how long this was going to. So we moved out here to a small house in the country, but I didn't know anybody. So I was like, I set up this big basement. It took almost a year to fix everything up, and then I was like, I'm going to start a YouTube channel. And I had like for 2 years, each one of my videos had like 4 views, 5 views. I remember I had 86 subs, and like the same 3 people who I miss. I don't see them too much. We were the only, but it was fun. It was 3 people to talk, 3 more people to talk to than I was talking to. And then all of a sudden, RJ from the Fourth Age just had me on his channel. We chit chatted back and forth in his chat. He had me on his channel, and he had like 26,000 subs at the time,
Whoa.
and he made news because he made a video about Sana Amanat, the one that Marvel was running Marvel Comics for a while,
Yeah.
the one that had like connections to Hillary Clinton and Obama and everything. So that like went all over the place, and then like 2 weeks later, he's talking to me. You know what I mean? So I was like, wow, and that.
So you caught a bit of a wave there.
What's that?
You caught a bit of a wave there.
Yeah. Like I joke, it's like a trebuchet. Like all of a sudden, you know, you know. I mean, I still have less than 2,000 subs, but because of that interview, I started interviewing. I never did the interviews before. I never thought about it. So I think he had Chuck Dixon. So I was like, you mind if I contact Chuck Dixon? And then Mike Barron came on first, and it was my first Mike Barron. It was awful. I do not, well, watch it to see how funny it is. I was
Have a look.
talking over him and everything, getting him annoyed. And then, here we are. And then RJ made a comic, and I was like, I can make a comic. RJ hired Renzo. I was like, I can hire it. So that's the joke. Whatever RJ for the Fourth Age does, I'm going to do next. So I hope he doesn't do anything illegal, because then I'll have to do something illegal.
Yeah, you'll have to just see if you can top that one. Just an additional question there.
Sure.
Music's very important to people. It's always part of the story of our life. And the question we have asked other guests, honored guests, is if your business plan or your comic or your company, the thing that you're trying to do could be a band, which band would represent you as a comic, what you're trying to do?
I don't know. It's funny that you said that, because I used to do music videos on Mondays. I used to call them Monday Music, and talk about my 45s and albums. And I never got to CDs. I stopped doing it. And then if you, I'll let you in on a little secret that I didn't tell anybody. A lot of the villains in Heroic Tales are inspired by songs. My next crowdfund is going to be Patriarch #1, and it's obvious who I'm not going to spoil it now. I want people to open it up, because some people are never going to get it, and then some people are going to go like, "Oh my god, that's a David Bowie song." It's literally the title of a David Bowie song. That's a good villain. So, but music is important. Again, the Patriarch has 7 children, and they're homeschooled. And one of the things that they do is it like, I try to think of their curriculum. Every Friday, it's just music. So that they all play instruments, like kind of like like the Patriarch plays music, but he's a superhero. He's not on a set schedule. And in one of the future issues, the kids are gonna have a discussion with their father, like, when are we gonna get powers? Like one of the kids is gonna run around with the cape, and the father's just like, you're not, because in Heroic Tales, there's 2 ways. The main way you get superpowers, it doesn't pass on. It changes your thoughts, it changes your brain, but it doesn't change your genes. So like you're not going to get powers. So they're kind of disappointed when they hear that. When your father could fly and you find out you're never going to be able to fly, so they're going to form a punk band called the Puny Mortals.
That's a good one. We
Yes.
like that. That's
So they're going
that's
to
what
make shirts, and they're going to I can't fly. Like they're going to play songs like that.
you're not going to get that in the not so big too, are you? You just that's the genius of indie comics. It really is. That's something different, and that's the whole beauty of indie comics.
So I,
Now then,
I hope
how
I don't
about
get
we
too
do something like this? What does he create? What does John's Longbox Comics, John Bua create? What's your elevator pitch or your convention table pitch? If somebody's walking up to your table at a convention, how do you describe what you create?
Okay, I'd create Heroic Tales. It's a comic. It's a blue sky love letter. It's a blue sky love letter to Bronze Age comics. Meaning it's full of hope and the good guys are good, the bad guys are awful. Matter of fact, I mean,
Mm.
if you read issue number one, both of the bad guys had horrific plans that I didn't actually explain. I left that to the reader to figure out. So, but it's not deconstructed. It's not the boys. The patriarch is not going around sleeping with other women. He wants to be home with his wife and kids. So, I want it to be like role models and people you could aspire to. And if these heroes actually existed, you'd be happy.
Yes.
Like, let's be realistic. If you lived in New York City and the Punisher was going around, like, would you want that? I mean, some people would, but like, I don't know. Like, so the average person knows that this group is a mafia group, or are they just the Italians who donate money to the church every Easter, and the Punisher just went in and killed them all. So like we know because we have this God's eye view of all the characters and their actions. But like, like how many people really do believe Spider-Man's a menace? And forget about the X-Men. I don't want to live in the world with the X-Men. These are the most compromised superheroes, and I use it to, especially lately. Heck. But like Superman, you want Superman in your town, you know. You don't even want Green Lantern. He blew up and killed the whole town. We forget about that, Hal Jordan.
Yeah, that one's under the rug, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. That's to me. Once you go nuts and just you can't blame it on Parallax. I
No.
mean you can, but Hal Jordan is forever tarnished. Um,
It's crossing the Rubicon, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Can't
When
go back.
stuff like that. So, uh, do you want the Fantastic Four in your town too? As much as I love the Fantastic Four, this guy's got a nuclear reactor and rocket ships, and Doctor Doom's always attacking. I wouldn't. I would be like, it's cool. I live in Albany, home of the Fantastic Four. They're in New York, but I'm at least 600 miles away, and you
Yeah.
know, and I get the bragging rights, but none of the danger. And I definitely wouldn't rent out an apartment in the Baxter Building. So,
No.
so like, I want my guys.
The housing insurance would
Right,
be crazy. You know what I mean? I'd have to move to another state because of my house insurance.
right, right. Or the Hulk. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to live anywhere near the Hulk. So it's funny because you just made me think of something I never thought of before. Like, I always say that like my characters have Marvel style stories, like human flaws, but now I'm starting to realize maybe they're DC level icons. Like the Patriarch is good. Like, I don't know, does that ruin the drama and suspense that he is like he's like a Boy Scout. In the first issue of Heroic Tales, the first thing he does is he stops a bank robbery, but he
Yeah.
doesn't come in guns ablazing and everything. He actually comes in and de-escalates through talk. He basically intimidates the bad guy, and the bad guy drops his weapon and surrenders. And then when he
You got
meets up,
Mike Tyson intimidation thing going on. The beating before he gets in the ring.
well, more kind of like the stern school teacher, like, this is wrong. You shouldn't be doing this, or the father, when dad shows up, the first thing if your dad opens up the door and starts whooping ass, rather than be like, Kyle, what are you doing? You shouldn't be doing that. We raised you better. Things like that. Because
Just took me back there for a second. Just straighten up in my
right,
chair.
right,
Just behave myself.
right. That's and then when he meets Dr. Robug, the main villain, that's the first thing he does too. He Roland, you can't do this. Things like that. And then there's another, the reporter has problems. He doesn't chastise her. He's like, we got to get you the help that you need. Things like that. So and that continues all the time. Like that's one of the things he's going to be known for. Is he always, if he knows the villain's secret identity, he doesn't call you Mr. Evil. He's like, Kyle,
He
I
goes on
thought
his
we worked this
personal
out.
level, humanizes them, tries to get
Right.
them on side.
He's a father.
He's a
He's a
father.
father to Science City. He's a dad. He'll whoop your ass. That's one of the things today's fathers need to do is if the kid won't listen to reason, you gotta crush that troublemaking spirit out of him until you don't, you know what I mean? But my dad, we had 7 kids. We got hit. We got beat. It didn't hurt me none. I always say there's a difference between a spanking and a beating.
Yeah.
And that's what
Sure.
the patriarch wants to do is just talk you down and then maybe give you a little spank on the bottom if you're not behaving. And
Yeah. We're not,
sometimes
go on.
he has to give a beating, but I want that to be like, oh my God, this is bad. And then so I kind of think of him as a Superman kind of character, but the more you're going to get to know him, you're going to realize he's a Marvel character. He has Marvel weaknesses. There's another reason why he talked down Boss Moxie with the machine gun, and Dr. Robug figured it out. I'd like to think I'm clever enough that everybody else figured it out. I don't know if they figured it out, but there's a realistic reason rather than, because of the nature of the patriarch's powers. Mary Sue is, I don't know, maybe I got a little too clever because some people don't get it, but Mary Sue she's a Mary Sue. A Mary Sue is a, these days it just seems to be a trend. Whenever there's a female character, she's perfect. And the example is a Rey from Star Wars. From the very first moment she was introduced, she was the best pilot. She got a lightsaber. She was fighting Kyle. I almost say Kyle Ritter. What's his name? Kyle Renzo, whatever his name is, that the bad guy who was trained all his life to be a Sith Lord. And she's fighting him to a standstill. She's flying the Han Solo shows up and goes, "You're a good pilot. Here, the Millennium Falcon's here. Matter of fact, take Chewbacca. I don't need Chewbacca anymore. He's an accessory to you now." And Finn and everybody else was just like, Rey is the best. She had no story arc. She was perfect. So I'm kind of goofy. And that's called a Mary Sue.
She hasn't earned it. She hasn't earned it.
So this is my character. I was like, I want to make a female power, and I'm inspired by the Scarlet Witch. Everybody's like, Scarlet Witch is the most powerful. She can do this, and I wanted to be like, yeah, but you don't understand that there's consequences to her powers. So I wanted to make up a character with similar but different powers to the Scarlet Witch, who's all. And I was like, she's Mary. I was like, she's a Mary Sue, and then I'm like, she's Mary Sue. So her name is Mary Sue. Her last name is S.U. It's a Chinese name. She came from China. And I'm like, all right, she's perfect. So her tagline is, where do you go when you're already perfect? So she's perfect. So it's right on the nose that she is a Mary Sue. So if you accuse her of being a Mary Sue, I'm like, yeah, it's in the name. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So, but one of the things about her is, what does it mean to be perfect? Me and you have different definitions of perfect. Everybody has a different. So she's perfect in her grandmother's. She's living up to her strict Chinese grammar. You a doctor yet? So Mary Sue, she's 22 years old. She was born into wealth. She's a hot little Chinese girl. She's a good girl. She doesn't sleep around. She's never even had a boyfriend because she was always studying. She has multiple PhDs at the age of 22. She was one of only 2 people to win the science award, and then she gets recruited right out of college to work for Manning Enterprises, who's, in my world, he's the Lex Luthor. He didn't do anything illegal yet that people know about. He did illegal things, but he didn't do anything super villainous yet. And so she's got the perfect life. She meets her college buddies and everything's perfect until it's not perfect. And it's her origin. She gets her powers, and she doesn't know she has powers, and she doesn't even know that she did something. And Bill Williams lettered it, so he obviously read it, and he was saying, it was so good. I really like the way you did it. So I was like, do you get what happened? And he explained back, and he goes, yep, okay, good, because sometimes you wonder if people are going to get it. So it's 2 complete stories, like Marvel Comics used to be. So that's another thing I'm going to pitch together. You buy my comic, you're getting a full story. Matter of fact, you're getting 2 full stories for $10. I feel in crowdfunding, one of the weaknesses is you wait too long.
Yeah.
in between. And I'm you know, but
Yeah.
at least
That's
you know,
the Achilles
I
heel of
know about
independent comics and crowdfunding, isn't it? It's the scheduling and then the fulfillment after that. You've got
right,
people don't want
and
to
that's
wait
just the
half
way
a
it
year.
is. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's a thing.
It's a
So
thing.
I'm not going to make you wait 2 years between issues to complete a story, and I also don't want you to pay $25 an issue, wait 5 years, and then when the story's over, you just paid $170 for a story. You know, it's a comic book. Comic book's supposed to be affordable, so you're paying $10. You're getting two stories, so really you're paying $5 a story,
Yeah.
and they're complete. You know, so if you never buy one of my books again, I hope you at least had a satisfying read. If I give up tomorrow, at least you had a satisfying read.
Yeah.
But they also build on each other. Like Heroic Tales 3 is going to continue what happened and the consequences of Mary Sue using her powers.
Self-contained but holistic. You can.
Correct.
There is a development of things.
Like Marvel Comics,
Used to be.
what back in the 80s, you bought a issue of the Fantastic Four, and yeah, they may have referenced that time Galactus came. You don't have that issue, but they bring you up to speed.
Up
You
to
understand, and then by the end of the issue, very rarely was it continued next issue.
No, it was
You know,
self-contained. You could enjoy it for what it was.
self-contained, but it built on other things. Oh, who is Blastar? Blastar is the negative verse, the negative zone, and the negative zone. You know what I mean? Like they fill you in on the details, sometimes with a little bit of awkward writing, but
But just enough to make you curious about going and get some back issues, perhaps.
like uh, my next campaign is going to be the Patriarch #1. So people like the Patriarch, so I can handle 2 comics, not much more than that. So the Patriarch is going to spin up into his own
So
comic.
Heroic Tales then is the actual anthology comic. That's like your company comic that
Right.
introduces
That was the
characters.
original idea. I don't know if you're familiar with Astro City by Kurt Busiek.
Yes.
Yeah, that was what Heroic Tales was. That's why I called it Heroic Tales, not the Patriarch, because every issue was going to have a different character.
Got
And
it.
then
That answers my question. Yeah.
yeah, so that was the vision, and then I started to realize, I didn't tell the Patriarch's origin. People are telling me about the origin. People want, why is Patriarch's wife scarred? What's going on with that? And I'm like, am I going to make people wait 5 years before I get back to the Patriarch? So then I said, all right, it's going to be a split book. It's going to be 2 stories in every issue. One of them's always going to be the Patriarch, and then one of them's going to be somebody else. And then I was just like, why not just do a Patriarch book? And then Heroic Tales will be what I imagine. So Heroic Tales is always going to be 2 characters,
Yes.
and I don't know if I'm going to follow because the Patriarch did 2 stories. So, and then Mary Sue's going to have 2 stories. I don't know if I'm going to follow that story or not, but I have a certain order of stories that I have to tell because I'm trying to follow the MCU where you introduce the characters and then down the road the team forms when you get the threat.
Yes.
So, that's what I'm trying to do. So like Heroic Tales 10, I kind of want to have like an oversized issue with the threat but I have to tell the
So it
story.
develops organically. To me, you're going to get there in a lovely unfolding tapestry in its own time. It's not forced. You're not going for a cash grab. You haven't got a big movie
Cash grab. I
franchise.
wish this was a cash grab.
But you're letting the tale unfold in its own time, which is organic storytelling, which is the most beautiful kind. You're a patient storyteller because you've got the RPG background. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
almost thinking in like a campaign format.
Right. This is a campaign. A good way to put it. Good word. And like with the exception of like, in issue 2, there's a bunch of construction workers or city. With the exception of them, everybody has a story that I could talk to you about an hour for. Like any character with a name, I have their interactions, their histories, their wants and desires, but you can't tell it in a small story.
Well, sorry to interrupt, but do you know one thing we get about how in depth you are with Mary Sue there? Is this a product of your RPG background? Have you done character sheets have you brought some of your RPG development across? Because obviously with a campaign, you have a loose outline of maybe 12 RPG sessions, for example, and then you've got character sheets and stuff like that with, the kind of character stats and what they can do, the background, the history, and so forth. Have you
Like
done that for Mary Sue and
so, so,
Patreon?
so I'll start at the beginning. This is a role playing game called Villains and Vigilantes. It came out in 1982.
And they too. Wow.
And I played Dungeons and Dragons all the time. Me and my friends played Dungeons and Dragons, and then quickly I became the permanent DM for Dungeons and Dragons. And a friend of mine was like, "There's this superhero game." We saw ads for it in comics at the time, and I was like, "Oh my god, the superhero game!" Because that's what I like more than than fantasy. So
Mhm.
this came out, and I bought this, and I've never played Dungeons and Dragons again since 1982. But I always say Dungeons and Dragons because people understand what I'm talking about. But whenever I say me and my friends are playing Dungeons and Dragons, we're really playing this. And
There's a
over
vagina.
the course, like I set up websites. You know, if you go to villainvigilantesforum.com, that's
Yeah.
me. I've been running that for oh, geez, 25 years now. You know, and at one point it was the only active villains
Sorry,
vigilante.
John. Could you type that in the chat so if anybody looks at the stream later, they can actually go
I'll
to
put
that?
it in the private chat because it's a
All
link.
right.
I won't be
Okay.
able to. Yeah, but uh www.villains. I'm spelling it wrong. I always put the vigilantesforum.com.
Cool.
So I'll put that. Then you because it's a link. I can't put it in the chat. But anyway, I've been playing this game for years. I have like a house rules edition if that you can see if you go to that forum, and I use that system even if we do fantasy worlds. Even if we if we play a Dungeons and Dragons type story, a future story, space story. That's what I love about this game, and I think that's the reason why nobody heard of it. Because for $5 you bought this booklet and you didn't need anything else.
It was so self-contained.
Yeah, it was you know what I mean. So you bought it and you never needed to buy anything else. You know, and I don't know what happened, but it's still available. You can go to Fantasy Games Unlimited, and pick up a copy. So when I was making my comic, I've been talking on my forum for years, so I know all the people involved with the game. At one point, the creators of the game were on my forum, and then they started fighting. So I reached out to the guy who owns the game, and I said, "Can I make use your Village Vigilante stats? I would love to give back to this game that I've been playing for 40 years, you know?" So these are cards. So this is Dr. Robug. So
Oh,
these are
bravo.
stretchable cards. So if if you
This
got the
guy
comic,
that drives the giant bug machine.
yeah, if you get the comic, you get this card. I made 7 cards. I got 4 of them unlocked during the campaign, but now with campaign 2, you could buy a full set of 7 cards for $10.
Is
But
that like top trumps or trading cards or more like top trumps? So you got stats and that?
yes, on the back,
Whoa, here we go.
it's got its Villains Vigilante stats. So I got permission to use the Villains Vigilantes
Well
badge.
done. Well
So
done.
if you go to a comic, if you go to a game store, a hobby store, or just go to their forum and buy this, you could
You could almost role play with your cards. They
yeah.
could become
And
your
if you
character.
have any questions, because some powers I made up, there's a lot of in Village Vigilantes. There's a lot of like special power, and it basically says you make it up. So yeah, I'll explain how they work. But there you go. This is streamlined because I use house rules. I use a lot of different. And yes, every one of my characters, I have a role playing sheet made up, so I know exactly how many hit points Mary Sue has. I know exactly how much the patriarch can lift with his telekinesis. You know, I know how many times Mary Sue could use her abilities in a combat without getting exhausted. So I keep that over here when I'm writing the stories. I'm like, she would be tired by now. I'll do stuff and I'm doing the math over here.
Like a research and development reference.
Right. Like I know what skills she has. Like she's not all of a sudden gonna start doing kung fu. She doesn't have that written on her sheet yet. You know what I mean? She's a 22-year-old girl who studied advanced particle physics, stuff like that. So when monsters attack, she's not gonna jump up and kung fu them.
No.
She doesn't know that. That's where
Yeah.
issue 2 comes in, is she realizes I don't know how to fight. You know,
Yeah.
she and if she did, and if she's 110 pounds, she's literally 110 pounds. That's what it says on the character sheet. If she was, and she's 5'2", if she was to throw a punch at you, you'd laugh at her. You'd be like, "Stop! That stings."
That's the beauty of the genius of how you've actually asked them permission to thread their stats in with your character development, or you being a role player as well, is that you're very aware of what characters are capable of, but everybody else in your group, when you actually play a superhero, that awkwardness of being a human being trying to do something fantastical. You've got the hero's point of view of, well, I'm only this high. I can only do this. I can't do that. I can't do kung fu. So as playing the character and getting to the heads, you have a sense of what you can and can't do. So this to me is beautiful development. It's very rounded. It's very no grounded.
Yeah, yeah. I want to address her weaknesses. Like, she doesn't know she's a superhero yet in the first story. The second story is she's gonna be back home working at the supermarket that her parents she's defeated. She kind of has post-traumatic stress disorder. She's disfigured. She has a scar on her face. One of her friends died right in front of her, eaten by monsters. And the experiment that she was a part of ends. I'm not gonna elaborate. It ends. So she goes home in disgrace. It's her first failure. Everything came easy to her, and now, again, I don't want to, you got to read the story, but part 2 is going to be the consequences of of the thing that she did last issue.
So when the defeat comes, it's shattering because it's a first
Right.
big defeat.
Perfect. Right. So I'm kind of goofing on the idea that she's perfect, but is she?
But is she? Yeah. When we get our first big failure, it's humble pie, isn't it? It's that
Right.
sense of humility.
So I'll tell you that her power is she could rewrite possibilities.
Ah, see, that's an
She could
interesting one.
literally rewrite. Like the example that I give to people is, okay, she's walking down the street. There's a car accident. The car, boom, hits a little kid. The little kid is killed. She could change the possibilities. Now, she can't just make it disappear. She could change the possibilities. So there's a couple of possibilities. She's not skilled enough to pick the possibility, so she could change the possibility. So that's later on, when she's been around for 20 years, maybe she could literally pick. But right now she's
Yeah.
So okay, so she changes the possibility. So instead of that car hitting that kid, that car hits another car.
Yeah.
Now that kid survives, but maybe this kid's in that car. You know what I mean? And it happens quick. She has to make a decision. So she doesn't want to use her powers. Like, she's a good Roman Catholic girl. Does she get to decide who lives and dead, who dies? Like, if she dropped her pencil on the ground, she's like, all right, I changed the possibility. I don't drop my pencil. There's no real consequences of that. But the bigger the stakes. I have a. Oh, thank you. I have a.
AstroComics.net. Keep up the awesome work, Kyle. We need more streams like this.
Thank you.
And obviously, I tell you what, John Bua of John's Longbox of Longbox Comics is a great topic for a stream, because
Yeah, I can
he's
talk
working topic of topics. He's got almost an encyclopedic knowledge of storytelling. It's a real boon to have him on the show. It's great for you to happen on by HowToDrawComics.net. He's got a great how to draw site, actually. If you want to get into drawing comics, he's got one of the best how to do comic book drawing sites there, full of support, full of video streams, regional subs per month. There's great Black Friday deals around about October, November, is it? And basically you can buy basically the whole lot for a great price. And you can actually get memberships that basically you'll get mentored and you get feedback on your work in real time. So, it's not just you're left to do it and draw on your own, but actually you'll get support to actually help you improve, and the support of the community. So to me, if anybody wants to really start to sharpen up the artistic craft regarding how to draw comics, HowToDrawComics.net, probably a guy.
Cool. So I lost my train of thought. I forgot what I was saying about Mary. But anyway, she's got godlike abilities and she's reluctant to use them because
you were saying that she can roll the dice almost. She's almost like a dice master.
Right.
She can roll the dice.
Now she can roll the dice. And just like comic books, people get more skilled with their abilities. Like the Patriarch in issue 1, he's been around for 20 years. So he's pretty skilled. Like he uses his telekinesis to mimic super strength and invulnerability. You know what I mean? So when he's punching people, he's really throwing a telekinetic bolt at them. When bullets are bouncing off him, he's really robbing them of the kinetic energy, and they're dropping and things like that. So that's his weakness, is if he's not focused and aware of the attack, you could take him out pretty easily. People always say like, you know, I do clobbering time, so people are like, oh yeah, who would win, Batman or Superman, or who would win, Spider-Man or whatever. It's funny
That's like
whenever they
reading a comic book. I remember actually getting involved in the chat, and it can actually, in a nice way, it can get quite feisty. Good thinking,
yeah,
no,
in a fun way.
Nightwing will beat Daredevil. No, Daredevil will beat
Yeah, what are you crazy? What are you, a
Chris
jerk? Batman
Experience.
Batman gets prep time. You know, I'm like, what? The Thing can't prepare. You know, only Batman's allowed to. So it's funny because whenever they say, okay, what about the Patriarch versus Spider-Man? I just go Spider-Man, and they're like, what do you? I don't want to make the most powerful superhero. That's boring. You know, there already is Superman. You know, so what am I going to make a character that can beat up Superman? Then what? You know, okay, so he beat up Superman. What's the next story? Now I got to make up a bad guy who could be, you know, take it. You constantly, it's the Doctor Who problem. Every Doctor Who, they got to they up the stakes, the upper the stakes, the upper the stakes. You know, each companion has to out companion the last companion to the point it's ridiculous. You know, back in the 70s and 80s, the companions just like, I'm tired, I want to go home. You know, when
Yes, Sarah, bless her. I tell you what, I think she broke one of the Doctor's two hearts.
yeah.
When she got left, I didn't understand it then, and I don't understand it now.
Oh,
Oh,
one of the
Sarah.
second doctors had a little a girl, I can't remember her name, and she just was like, I'm gonna go. Like they went to modern day London, and she was just like, I'm gonna go get clothes out of my apartment, and then they just left without her.
Oh,
Yeah.
dude, Doctor, you heartbreaker, you bad boy Doctor.
Well,
Yeah.
it happened that the actress took another role. You know what I mean? So, but they didn't have time to come up with an excuse. You know, the very first companions, the Ian Chesterfield and why can't I remember the woman? They just got tired and you know, retired and like they didn't have to save the universe. But anyway,
Who's your favourite Doctor, and who's your favourite Doctor's assistant? Got to ask that now that you've brought it up.
oh yeah, I love the first Doctor, old
Hartnell,
crotchety old
David
man.
Hartnell.
Yeah, I love him. He wasn't he was like a mean school teacher, you know. I just liked him. I, I like the fact that the Doctor had like an edge. He was kind of nasty, but at the same time he would save everybody and figure that. And he was so fragile. And when he was moving around, you're like, he didn't beat up anybody. It's so British, you know, like none.
But it's the
Until you
power
get
of
to
the
the
mind, isn't it? He's a
right,
clever guy. He's a
until
clever
you
guy.
got to the third Doctor with his Venusian kung fu. Like the Doctor never really did fisticuffs, but I like him. The modern Doctors, I liked I liked what's his name. Now all the names are blanking. The ninth Doctor, the one that only lasted one season,
Oh,
and
Chris
then
Eccleston.
yeah, Christopher Eccleston. I just liked him. I thought he had a really good range, and he you know, and he once you learned about him, you realized that this guy was carrying a burden, and he was resentful and sad and everything, trying to act happy. I didn't catch that the first time I watched it, but upon rewatch, you realize he was responsible for the death of his people, and he did such a good job. Now I know that actor is very difficult to work with, and I think that's why he only lasted one season.
Yeah, I
Him and
think
Rhoda were perfect together.
Chris Eccleston, to me, I thought they could have done even more with. Actually, it was a shame
Yeah,
he only lasted one. When we heard that Chris Eccleston was playing the part, if you see his part in things like Our Friends Up North and stuff like that, I mean, he's a great actor, and I
yeah.
just felt they could have done a lot more with him. There's a lot more reach there. You know, probably the first Doctor I've been excited about since Tom Baker, who was my favourite, the fourth Doctor, and obviously I've got to ask you your favourite Doctor assistant.
I gotta say, I have two. Uh,
Go on then.
uh, it's funny. Out of all of the original series, I have some like the third Doctor had that cute girl, the one that famously like was in a Playboy magazine with the Dalek. I can't remember her name, but my favorite is Amy Pond. She is just like within 10 seconds of her being on this, I was like in love with her. She's I think if you see there's going to be iterations of her physical beauty in my comics. There's something about a sexy, cute redhead, and she was so good in that role. And then I Martha Washington, I absolutely loved. No companion worked so hard for so little. That woman, you know, that story where she went around the world like basically preaching about the Doctor, so everybody would generate enough psychic energy, struggling through war zones and everything. And then the doctor's like, I don't love you. I just feel, and then she gets the, not even the real, she gets the replicate version of what's his name, the black kid that was Rose Tyler's boyfriend, as a consolation prize. I just felt like she just works so hard for so little, and every other
Well,
companion just gets everything. You
yeah.
know, when they get dismissed, like Clara, come on, Clara, how many endings did you have? You know that it should, when she got shot, that should have been it. And then the last moments of her life, Doctor Who was doing with time to give her, a proper set, and then she should. But now she's space lesbians with her own TARDIS and blah blah blah. And then Billy turns into a Cyberman, and I was like, wow, Doctor failed. But now she's also space lesbians with the pool of
Right, I think on that subject, we'll move swiftly on. I think that's where Doctor Who probably died with Tom Baker for me. I think we're in a different era. Uh,
yeah,
Funny enough, we have got a lovely special set of covers here from your flip book. We've
yes,
got Heroic Tales and Heroic Tales. It's a flip book. Uh, and we've got two special covers here. One by, well, they're both by the same artist, the
right.
Patriarch, artist Renzo, and we've got Mary Sue here, artist Renzo. Tell us about this flip book concept and these two beautiful covers. What
Okay,
happens when you tell Renzo to do a cover?
so there's going to be two characters in every issue of Heroic Tales, and each one deserves their own cover. And I could have made buy the Mary Sue cover, but then there's a Patriarch story in there without a cover, or buy the and then I would have to get something on the back cover anyway, because if you print your own comics, if you don't have anything on the back cover, the printer puts an ad on the back cover, so it'll say Comics Wellspring and everything, which is fine. They were really great. They were great customer service. I got nothing against but I want my stuff on my comic. So
Yeah.
I was gonna have to put something on the back cover anyway. So I was like, you know what? Let's just put both covers on. So it's a flip book. I have to demonstrate. So this is the way a flip book works.
Oh, let's put you on the big screen for this, John, so we can see you.
Yeah. So this is you read The Lost Boy by Dan
Yeah,
Panosian, great artist who started
yeah,
out on Villains and
that's great.
Vigilantes, and then you flip it over.
Oh,
And
yeah,
it's
yeah.
versus metal. So at some point,
Sure, Mark.
forgive my cough.
Come on.
So when you're reading the Patriarch, when that's over, you're going to see upside down Mary Sue, and then you flip it over. And then when you bag it and board it and put it in your comic collect, you get to decide which cover you want to put as the display cover, or you can buy both copies and help me out. And
Well, that's one thing you could do. Certainly, why not? I'll
so,
tell you, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what. Those two covers. I mean,
aren't
what
they so good?
I mean, Renzo's work. It gleams, doesn't it? It's just we often use the phrase, "Renzo's the sun." His work shines like the sun, and we mean it as it sounds. It just
Renzo is
no
so
instrument makes you happy. And the one thing we get from what you're trying to do, you were saying when we were talking about what you're trying to do, we're getting yes, DC that catches you, almost grabs your attention. But then when you read it, it's Marvel because the flaws are there. So you're actually treading a fine line there between Team Blue and Team Red, which we think is very, very clever. You know what I mean? And you've got that sense of iconic drawing on the almost Superman idea for the Patriarch. But when you actually read the story, one of the things that we're looking at throughout the stories, he really sweats when he's using different powers, whether
right,
he's going to take out a meteorite or even do where he's trying to fix the barrier in the road so that people don't have accidents and go off the road. Everything he does, there's a price to pay. And we think that is good Bronze Age storytelling. And even some of the classical, quote unquote, nudity you have in there is very much Bronze Age tradition. You don't
right,
go too far into it, just enough to give the reader credit for having a brain.
right. Yeah, there's sexiness and and sensuality, but not outright nudity. It's all ages.
Yes.
And if you haven't seen, if it hasn't been in an 80s Marvel DC comic, it won't be in my comic. So there's not going to be full on nudity but there's going to be a little bit of gore. I think it's okay to push the gore a little bit more than you see. Like it didn't happen in the first issue, but there's going to be some the second story of Mary Sue, I think I'm going to push the gore a little bit. But if
We
he's
we thought the storytelling was very on the nose, you know, John. I mean, there were aspects during the comic we were wincing. We're thinking, "Crikey, you're not going to get that in a modern Team Blue or Team Red
good,
comic."
good.
I thought he's really pushing it, but keeping that balance. Does that make
One of the
sense?
things I don't think I people I think I failed in this aspect is he was coming home after a superhero adventure. So he already did a big old battle, and he was just like, okay, one last pass before I go home. So he was already tired. He was already kind of beat up, and I don't know if I made that point well enough. And then because the family was waiting for him, he basically was like, I'm coming home, and it was Father's Day, and they had the dinner for him and everything like that, and they got they went to sleep waiting for him. And if you see when he smashes that meteor, his eyes are glowing.
Yes.
I didn't explain that, but in Mary Sue's story, I'm gonna explain that. So maybe okay, so this is what is going on. I'll just say spoiler. Whenever all the superheroes, if you have superpowers, again, there's two ways to get superpowers in my comic, and both of them were explained in that comic. The patriarch is a normal superhero. The suit got his power through supernatural, like he sold his soul to the devil.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's a whole nother ball of wax. But if you get your powers through people say that's boring. There's one way to get superpowers, but I almost spoiled too much.
It can manifest in different interesting ways, even though there's the one source. And that's the beauty of your RPG approach. You can get a lot of dice rolls of this one concept, no?
Right. When their eyes start to glow, that's bad. It's like they're about to cross the threshold of something bad. So yeah, he can smash that meteorite, but he's experienced enough to know that it'll get bad if that you know I could smash this up here, and if things go bad, I'm high enough in space I could deal with this consequences. But if that meteorite hits the ground, people died, and I could have prevented. I can't live with that. I'll deal with my consequences. You know what I
Yes.
mean? But people don't have to deal with those consequences. Like you didn't. When I wrote the script, it was world building the comic. I explained way too much. My friends were like, streamline it, streamline it, streamline it. So I laser focus. Like, no joke, it was like a cast of like 30 superheroes, my original script. And it started in like caveman times, and they're like,
You're
I don't
trying to
have any
put
of
the
these.
whole thing in, you know?
So I was like, okay, the patriarch is a good centerpiece for my comic book world. But one of the things that you will learn is that
He's your way into the universe. He's like the
yes,
window.
yes, is that superpowers themselves are not natural. Humans aren't supposed to have them. It's like the One Ring. Sooner or later, you will succumb. Just think of it. You can mind control somebody. I'm good. I'm a good guy. I'm Mr. Brain. I'm good. How long before you're taking advantage of people doing things you shouldn't be doing? You know what I mean? Next thing you know, like you got like a cult like. It's just like I always say, mind control is just a bad guy's power. But you know, you're immortal or whatever. How long before you just become callous or whatever? So Patriarch is one of the longest superheroes. He's been around for 20 years. He hasn't. Most of the bad guys were former good guys. They succumbed to their powers. You know, I'm telling too much. And
He's resisted the call to the dark side.
right, the most if you get the superpowers, most of the people can't handle that. You know,
Because absolute power corrupts.
right?
Absolutely.
These people, like, oh my god, like they just some of the powers themselves. Like, there's a bad guy called the Burning Man. He just starts burning, but it hurts,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
he's just running around screaming, and you know what I mean. He's just
Oh, there's a psychological impact to him
right.
using his powers straight away.
And then
Pain,
there's a
suffering.
there's a guy called Tundra who grows ice, and he's freezing all the time. So he just like went down to the equator, to be warm. He took himself out of everything because there's real world consequences to have these
So your
powers.
storytelling is consequential. That's what we
Right,
like
there's
about it, and
consequences.
treading that line between, good and evil.
Now, Mary Sue, I'm trying to drive this home. She could break. I have rules. that I don't want to restate because that'll be too obvious. But there's rules, there's consequences. When you die, you die. There's no multiverse version of Patriarch going to come out when I kill off the Patriarch. There's not going to be the
Crisis on Infinite Earths.
right.
Don't get Azrael on Crisis on Infinite Earths, folks. He'll start talking about Dallas and Bobby in the shower. Don't do it.
There are other universes. There is a multiverse, but each multiverse has different laws of physics. So you can't. There is no Patriarch in another universe. There's no Kyle Prometheus. So when they die, they die. The exception to all of the rules is Mary Sue.
Yeah.
Because she's. But the thing is, there's consequences to breaking rules. All right. Just think when you're a kid. All right, you want to sneak out at night and have fun? Well, you could get caught, and then you have to. Are those consequences worth? She doesn't understand any of that yet. So there you go. I'm being cheeky about Mary Sue.
No,
yes, these are variant covers,
and these are variant covers. Tell us about these, please.
Okay.
By Joe C. Garcia, who's got his own book out on Indie Comics Campaign, hasn't he? And right. Josh Howard, we've got a lot of his work. Apart from the Horizon one.
These guys are pros. They've been in the business for a while. Jose Garcia, he does with Aaron Carter, I think it's called Immortal Beloved. He also has another comic now, and I'm doing him at a disservice that I can't remember the name of the comic, but he is such a great talent, and he's
really unique.
He colored this too. He drew this and colored it. Look at that. So this bad guy's called the Subterranean, and he rules the caverns below Science City. And there's more to him. I hope people understand there's more to him than I showed. He says to the Patriarch, "What do you think I do down here all day long? This thing's worse than me, and you don't know about them because of me." You know what I mean? And he goes, "And you come down here to fight me?" Things like that. So, and he's covered in these mushrooms and everything. So as the Patriarch hits him, these spores come out, and he hallucinates. So I was just like, I got to get Jose Garcia to draw this guy because it's right up his artwork is trippy and everything, and his coloring is hallucinogenic. So I was like, this is perfect. I was so happy when he agreed to do this, and when he showed me the sketch, I was like, oh my god, that is so good, so good. So
I see the Patriarch here. He's up against it. I mean, he's on the floor. He's clearly he looks like he's been given a right thump there.
Right. Well, just imagine he's as strong as the Hulk, and then has those mushroom minions, and then he has like hallucinogenic spores. So so he'll punch you, you breathe in, and you start to trip.
He's come up against somebody who's called his bluff about being the pseudo Superman of the Heroic Tales universe.
Well, it's not only that. The Subterranean is so strong, it doesn't matter. You're Superman, I can still take you out. That's how strong I am. You know what I mean? Like that. He rules the underground realm. You got to be strong. To quote Tolkien, there's dark, nameless things in the earth, or to butcher Tolkien. And then Mary Sue over here, I was like, I got a cute Chinese, little cutie pie. Nobody draws cuter girls than Josh Howard.
Yeah, he's got a siren call, hasn't he? He just stop and look, and you keep to stare.
So I was just like, I asked Josh Howard. He was happy to do it. So I was just, I just told Jose who the bad guy was, and I sent him a sketch of what the bad guy was, and he designed the whole cover. Josh, I was just like, have the monster chasing her, and so I sent him a Renzo sketch of what the monsters look like, and he drew that. I just love this, it's so cute,
You give your artists a nice loose kind of brief, and they do the rest. So it's not a straitjacket. You kind of let them be themselves.
Right. Usually, like Renzo for the cover, he said something that broke my heart. He was like, "Can I do the cover? I never get to do covers." I was like, "How does Renzo not get to do covers? He's made." So I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "What do you want me to do?" I said, "You read the story. You drew the story. Whatever you want to do." So he had total freedom to do the story. Now, of course, push comes to shove, I'm the guy in charge. So he showed me the sketch, and I was like, "Don't change your thing. That is great." Yeah. So Josh, I was just like, focus on Mary Sue, and then have a monster chasing her. And that's what he does. His comics are about hot chicks being chased by monsters and fighting werewolves and demons and stuff. So this was right up his alley. And then I was just like, once I saw this, I was like, how much to buy that original art? So I paid him to do the cover, and then I bought the original art from him. I just love this. Jose does digital, so there was no original art to buy. So
Well, no original art for it. So, actually, right. So some people just digital. They haven't got the original artwork as an additional fund for them.
yeah, I think Jose was going through a family crisis. I think his dad was
Oh,
in the hospital, so he was drawing on his iPad
got
in the
you.
hospital. You know,
Got you. Wow. Gosh, that took. Yeah.
yeah,
Wow.
his father's okay now.
Is all- That's okay.
So
Just sorry, while we're on that, so I'm glad that his father's okay now. What
yeah.
about yourself with the neck and everything and the accident you
Oh,
had?
okay,
You
yeah.
mentioned the first Mark Miller interview
So
and the painting thing as well. Did they get to the bottom of
yeah,
that?
it was for those of you who don't know, I was involved in a car accident. It was July 17th. So I was working, and I'm a construction worker. I was working at the airport. It was 106 degrees at the airport. Now,
Ah,
I was on top of the building. It's called a Q deck. This is going to get construction geeky. It's a tin roof. It's actually stainless steel roof, and well, I'm getting like nerdy details. You don't need to know what kind of steel it is, but it's galvanized steel roof. So I'm on this roof, and what they do is that's you pour concrete on it. So I'm on a steel, and I'm drilling holes because we got to get holes so they can put pipes through for power.
yeah.
So one guy's spray painting. Boop. He's got a computer. Spray paint. Boop. It's really cool. You can't make a mistake. It's GPS computer, and he boop, boom, and he just hits the button, and a dot is made. But and then I'm following behind him with the drilling the hole, and then the guys behind me are putting these the screw it in these stands to hold the pipe. So it's just like a factory going around, and I was doing that. So if it's 100 degrees, 106 degrees at the airport, you could imagine how hot it was on top of a sheet of tinfoil. So we were all sweating and
Back to
dying.
heat, everything. Yeah.
And I was leaving at lunchtime because I had Mark Millar comment on my channel that day. So I was like, all right, I'm leaving at lunchtime. So coffee break came. I was just so hot. I just drank coffee. I didn't drink any water.
Did you
And
get
then
anything to eat that day before? Did you get anything breakfast? Did you get any lunch? Anything to eat?
there's a Tim Hortons on the way. So I get a cup of coffee. I get an egg sandwich. So I did eat something. And then I get my car. It's lunchtime, and I'm like, I'm just gonna go home. My wife's working at home. I'm going home at lunchtime. I got a couple of hours before, so I'll eat with my. So I got in the car and I drove, and all of a sudden, boom! I
Whoa.
right into a tree. I was on the highway, and when I fainted, I must have accelerated right into it, and broke my neck.
Jeez.
I was in pain, but it was from the airbag of the steering wheel hitting my chest. But I was just a big purple bruise.
Whoa.
I didn't think my neck, but the police came. They put my neck in a neck brace, just that standard procedure. And I'm fighting with the cops. The cops were laughing at me, man. They really, if I had some asshole cops, I would have been in trouble because I was like, you think I'm drunk? Like you're insane. I had,
The
I was,
shot.
yeah. And I was like, you think I'm drunk? Give me a drunk. And they were just laughing at me. I was like, all right. And then next thing you know, I'm trying to call Mark Miller to say I'm sorry. I was out of my mind.
John.
I was in the hospital for 28 hours. So I only had breakfast. So I was like livid. I was ready to fight with the doctor. I was like, I don't, but they didn't want to give me any food because they didn't know if I needed surgery or not,
Yeah.
but I wasn't in any pain. So I was like, I was bruised. They're like, yeah, I saw the CAT scans, but they didn't tell me my neck was broken.
No.
So I didn't know that there was anything wrong. So I'm just like, give me something to eat. Let me go home. What's going on? And then finally, I had an IV. They were putting ibuprofen in me, so I was feeling no pain. And I was just like, it's funny. I went up to the nurse. I'm like, can I just rip this out? She's like, why? I said, because I want to go get something to eat. Is there a McDonald's nearby? And she's like, what? I said, you got to have a cafeteria. So I started putting my jacket on, and a big orderly, big guy, huge. He's like, what's going on? I'm like, I've been in here 28 hours. I'm hungry. He goes, they, and then the doctor, this female doctor comes over and goes, you have a broken neck and you might be going in for surgery. And then I was like, why didn't you tell me that? He said, now I can work with you. Mm-hmm. All I know is that I said, I'm sitting here thinking that you forgot about me. you know. So
They sometimes leave you, and it's all that guesswork that
right,
kind of gets your head going, doesn't it?
right. So like, I mean, doctors ended their shift, so another doctor, you know what I mean. So the big orderly just he goes, I got you, and he came back with like a sandwich and everything. I was like, okay, and then I was pleasant as could be. I was just,
Yeah,
and I
just
told my wife, don't come to the hospital. What are you gonna do? Stand here and cry? Just stay home, And then I, my wife came pick me up, and I had this. Thank God they put this other neck brace on that was comfortable. The one that the cops gave me actually hurt, and this one was comfortable.
Mhm.
And the next day, I was like, all right, so I'm off work. So that was a Wednesday. So Thursday, I get up and I got my chainsaw and I was working in the garden, cutting down trees, helping my neighbor cut down. You know what I mean? And with a broken, but I'm not in any pain, so it can't be that bad. That's the way I'm thinking. And then Friday, I have the appointment with the specialist, and the
Yeah.
specialist, she just walks in and goes, "You have no idea how lucky you are." And then she
Whoa.
throws up the thing, and I turned white. And my wife's like, "You know what he was doing yesterday?" And she's like looking at me. She goes, "You could be paralyzed." She goes, it's crumbled. A little piece could come off. She goes, "Best case scenario, you die instantly. Worst case scenario,
Whoa.
it's like Christopher Reeve. You broke the same vertebrae and everything." She goes, "It's just your tissues are holding everything together." So then I got scared, and then I just sat in this chair for months, eating Twinkies and getting fatter and fatter. I'm finally losing weight. Like now, I'm at the weight I was before the accident. But like, you just you just sit, you know.
Have they put anything metal in there to keep it all
No
together?
surgery,
Anything?
nothing.
It healed itself?
It healed. Yeah, it healed. The doctor says it's healing really well. They're
God, that's
amazing how well
brilliant.
it's healing. She says in a year from now, you know, because I didn't lose mobility, you know, nothing. Um,
You're a lucky boy, John, but by the grace of God. How did your wife take all this? Because obviously she
oh,
must
she
have
was
been
a
a bit
wreck.
rattled and
She was,
upset.
she was a wreck. I called her from the ambulance. I called her before anybody showed up. I was in a car accident. I said, I'm fine. The car's totaled. And then I called her from the ambulance. I'm going to the hospital. And then I called her a couple times. You know, they're keeping me here. They're doing X-rays. They're checking her. Don't come. I'm fine. Don't come. You're just gonna stand here and cry. Don't. And then I broke my neck. And that was it. Because just like me, when you break your neck, that's bad. How many people do you know broke their neck? You
And
know,
come back from it.
yeah.
We're so
But
having
I
to
didn't break my spine. I,
no.
I I broke the vertebrae. So did I break my neck? Some people say I didn't really break my neck. I don't know. But if you break your spine, that's it. You're done.
Yeah.
You're paralyzed.
Well,
So I broke the vertebrae.
Christopher Reeves. I mean, to me, you're a lucky guy. But
Yeah.
it's obviously somebody up there in heaven's looking out for you,
And my
John.
wife says, she goes, "You changed." She goes, "I can't explain it, but you're different." I was like, "Well, you had a near death experience, you know."
All right.
So uh, I think I became more thoughtful. Like I don't complain about work anymore. Like I just get up and go to work, and happy to be there. Um, I'm scared of driving. As I know that's not a macho thing to admit.
No, it's
But
fine.
like on Saturdays when my wife and I go someplace, she drives. I was always the traditional male. I made the patriarch. I drive, but now I don't want to drive.
I understand that.
And like I had to drive out to like I only drive to work and back now. I am the biggest wuss. I know I got to get back on that horse and ride, but I don't need to. You know,
No,
I'm, you know,
no.
and
Take your
it's funny.
time.
Just yesterday, I was telling my wife that I always have a backup job, and I'm like, you know what? For years, I was like, my backup job, if I hurt my back or whatever, and I can't do construction anymore, my knees are bad. I want to be a truck driver. I said, just put on music, listen to, across country truck drivers, not these local drivers. That's the worst. But like, get my car and drive to Winnipeg. Get my car. Now I'm like, I don't want to do that. I lost my backup job. I'm too
Yeah.
scared. You know,
I'm sure a backup job will come to real soon. The way that Heroic Tales is going,
hope so. That
we
was the
think that might be your backup job after all. You don't know, do you? I mean, I think you're due some more success. Speaking of which, we've got the premise of the Heroic Tales, The Patriarch Returns, and we'll do our movie voice for this one. Here we go. He just wanted one quiet day with his family, but peace is a luxury the patriarch can't afford. When a deadly new villain strikes at the heart of the city, the line between hero and husband is stretched to its breaking point. Can he protect the people he loves the most without losing the very thing he's fighting for? In this emotionally charged follow up to Heroic Tales 1, the patriarch returns in a story that blends high stakes action with heartfelt fatherhood. Because for some heroes, saving the world never stops, and taking a day off might just be the most dangerous choice of all.
Yeah, he wants to spend the day with his kids. Like I'm talking about, I want to do Patriarch, his own comic. The way it's planned is issue one. I want to do his origin, so it's gonna start literally. Heroic Tales 2 is the day after Heroic Tales 1. You know what I mean? He was just like, for the last 2 days, I've been running ragged. Today, I'm going to stay home. And unfortunately, he turns on the news while his wife's in the shower. And I got to go, you know. So, Patriarch 1 is going to be the day after that. And it's going to, I can't spoil it, but it's going to break into a reason for him to like, I remember the day I became the patriarch kind of thing. And then you're going to see him when he's 20 years old, skinny, no beard. You know what I mean? Like he's already married, you know, so his wife's not a gold chaser. You know what I mean? They were married when he was a normal skinny guy.
Right.
They already had children, you know, and then
She's after him for him. She's not after what she can get. She's not one of those gold
right,
chasers.
actually, the day he gives birth is the day he gets the superpowers.
Wow.
You know, so and because of that, because of how he gets the super, everybody knows he's the patriarch. He doesn't have a secret identity.
So that's that Fantastic Four thing of that they've got no secret identity. He's quite open with that.
Yeah, and Mary Sue's not going to have an identity either. She's just Mary Sue. But then I have other like I have in issue 3. I'm going to introduce a Batman type guy called the Raven. He has a secret identity. You know, he's an undercover cop who goes in by day and works with the mob, and then at night beats them up because he's sick of them walking free. You know, it's like I keep arresting these guys, and they know the judges, and
He's reached the tipping point where he's had enough. But obviously, he's got to keep his identity secret because you can't
right,
have a vigilante cop. So that's a nice tension point there. That's
yeah.
an inflection point now, isn't it?
So he has a bunch of secrets that he's keeping. Yeah, this is the first page. This, you know,
Speaking of marriage time, is this bit of hug time here, John? We're using a kind of universal diplomatic speak here.
yeah, he's that they have 7 kids, man. You know, that's
Yes, and we've got her in the shower as well. You talked about this scar thing. What happened? Is there something behind this,
oh yeah, but I'm not.
or is that
I'm
can't we
really bad with spoilers, but I'm not spoiling this.
don't spoil it. That we that's
This
the whole point of us buying it. We want a little bit of teasing, but not so much. You know, some things you got to keep secret.
Renzo is the only one who knows why she's scarred.
I
Yeah,
see.
and
So the only way to find out is through Renzo or yourselves.
you will
Yeah,
find
it's a
out.
great scene here. You know, this idea, of balancing. You know, to me, sometimes things that are Bronze Age, just that hint, that classical tradition of nudity, and that
Right.
handling it in a tasteful and the right way. Yeah,
Yeah, and then I'm gonna have some word balloons, toning it down a bit.
yeah,
It's funny because I described her poses to Renzo, like she was supposed to have one arm like this,
yeah,
and then when she's reaching down, she's supposed to have one arm in front. So you know what I mean.
yeah.
So you
I
just
get
can't
it.
see
Yeah,
anything. Renzo made it a little bit more sexy. And the funny thing is, in Mary Sue, in the accident, her clothes get ripped off, but she's also posed like this. He toned that down, and he was like, "No, I like Mary Sue. She's my sweetheart." He wanted to desexify Mary Sue, and to me, the mother of 7 kids, he sexified. So I don't know what that says about Renzo.
Yeah, Renzo's got his own interesting thing going. I think I tell you what, have you guys formed a real bond actually?
Yeah, we
Because
we,
it was the
we
first
actually
issue,
talk on
he's
the
the
forum.
guy that you've picked. You've asked around. I guess you asked around, and he was the guy that you can trust.
He's the first and only guy that I asked.
Really,
I
he's the
saw
first one.
his artwork on Thomas Valiant for from RJ from the Fourth Age.
He's your guy.
Yeah, and I look at his artwork and I said, "This is John Byrne and George Perez had an art baby, and it's Renzo, and
What a
it's
way to
perfect.
describe it.
It's perfect Bronze Age Marvel comic artwork, or DC if you want to say like the new Teen Titans and stuff." So I asked Renzo, I asked RJ, I said, "Would you be upset if I," and he goes, "No, by all means, the guy's got a family, he's got bills to pay. I can't possibly be the only." So Renzo had other commitments. I sent him the script and he liked it. And then we started working together. And now, like, I'd say, like, maybe 2 days go by before we talk. Like, we talk about art and then we talk about family life. We've talked on the phone a few times. I wish he lived closer. He's a good guy. I really enjoy him. I want to work with him forever. You know,
That's brilliant. John Byrne and George Perez, you two guys of the 80s, of the
right,
Bronze era. That if you wanted two artists to be infused in one person, you'd probably pick those from
right.
Team Blue and Team Red. Yeah,
And then I've
perfect.
been blessed with two awesome colorists to the point I feel bad because I don't want to say like I want to stick with this guy. Nah, I want to stick. You know what I mean? Like I got Daniel. Daniel De La Silva Rodriguez. He does the coloring on
Yeah,
Genuine Comics, Dave Brink's comics. So I asked Dave, "Would you mind?" I'm not trying to poach anybody.
no, no.
And so
It's getting
Daniel does my color, but Daniel disappears for long periods of time. So I asked Oscar to couple, and Oscar's so good. But
yeah.
now I'm like, I don't want, I like Daniel and I like Oscar, and Oscar is so talented. Oscar could draw. I don't know if Daniel could draw, but Oscar could draw. So I have a side project with Oscar. It's called Eddie is Doomed, and it's the tagline for the elevator pitch for that is "Love and Rockets meets Crisis on Infinite Earths."
Well, that should be an interesting hybrid, won't it? Love and Rockets. We think we did get one issue of that because it was highly regarded. We thought we'd check it out. The artwork and it's beautiful. Love and
Yeah,
Rockets.
yeah.
Regarded.
So it's a slight it's a mundane story about I keep saying kid, but he's a 35-year-old man who, by the way, works at Sumart. He's the manager of the first Sumart, so that's how it's tied to Heroic Tales. Set in 1986, and his father's retiring,
As far as retiring.
so
So
he has,
this is a side project you've got going on?
yeah.
Just
So poor Eddie has to move out of the house for the first time in his life. For the first time in his life, Eddie has to do something inconvenient, and it's the worst possible thing in the world. Eddie literally got a job down the block. His first job he stayed with. You know, Ed, Eddie fell in love with this girl when he was 15 years old and never stopped loving her. She's married other people, but Eddie's
the
waiting for her. You know what I mean? Like that's the way Eddie
love
is.
of his life.
Yeah, and Eddie now has to move out of his parents' basement. So he goes to the comic book store to buy his comics. And this is 1986. There was no internet. You don't know what things just pop out, and you're like, "What?" So he gets a comic called The Doomed Earth, and it's the silver age of his favorite comic book company is ending, and they're restarting the continuity. And he's just like, "What's going on?" He can't even. So everything is changing all at once, and poor Eddie can't deal with it.
How
And,
did we survive without the internet back in those days? You know what I
right.
mean? You know what I mean?
It was
Cycling to the Sheffield Space Centre on a racer, 16 miles in brown cords, and I tell you what, the friction when you're trying to ride a racing bike with brown cords on, you've got long hair like Tarzan. But when you get there, you've got comic book heaven.
But you know what? You did it because you loved it.
Because
You
you loved it.
weeded out all the filthy casuals, you know,
Yes,
and then the people who worked in comic books were from that pool. The people that would ride their bike 16 miles to get the comics, they loved it. Now it's easy. Anybody, I like comic books. Okay, I could work from home. I could write a script. I didn't read those Kirby's and Ditkos and Buscema's, and you know what I mean. I just because right now every comic book is a movie, and every movie is $1 billion movie. Now, between me and you, and I won't repeat it, I'm kind of hoping all the Marvel movies bomb because then all of these people will leave, and maybe we'll get good comics again. But you know what? Maybe I'm damning myself. Let the movies be bad, and that way all the real comic book fans will buy a comic from me and Dave Brink and Brian Bow and guys like us.
exactly. What's that famous saying? If you want something doing right, you do it yourself.
Right. I quit Marvel and DC in 2015. I was just like, I can't take it anymore. Cold turkey. But I still love comics. So
For us, it was mid-90s. It was Crisis was the first one to go. We were done with Crisis, and then Marvel said they wouldn't do Crisis. Then they did Heroes Reborn. Then we were done with that. Iron Man was the last book. We hung on to the very end, and then the artwork changed and the story changed. The Heroes Reborn, it got very weird. And luckily, we found Gary Spencer Millage of Strangehaven, probably the best comic book in the world. Wait a minute, what we got here in the chat? Hello, folks. Just dropping by as I ink one new portfolio sample. It's Bianca Yamakoshi, who we call her art style. We've coined it ourselves, Gothic Noir. And she is the dark blade with ink, and she has a very unusual compositional style with pencil. She uses red pencil and blue pencil to separate people on the background elements. That's quite clever. If you've ever seen that, you can
cool.
show it some time. And then when she gets going with the ink, we call it the dark blade, the inking. It's like Gothic Noir, solid deep blacks, and she'd be a very good Batman artist. Put it that way. Anybody who gets her for the
let me see your artwork. Put it on Twitter or
we'll link it you and you'll be able to see
I want to check it out.
Very unusual. We like it. So
I was just saying,
Yamakoshi, give it a wave.
Because one of the things I'm doing is, Patriarch's going to get his own story, and then Heroic Tales is going to have two. Renzo can't possibly do it all. He's willing. I would love for him to do it. So I would like.
If you've got a Batman style character, she'd be a gal.
So I want to have a guest artist. You know what I mean? Like,
I'll tell you what, you might have a little look at work, and for your Batman cop character who's secretly a Batman style street hero.
My Batman character, Raven, Renzo's chomping at the bit to do.
Is he?
That would be a betrayal. I can't. But I do have other dark characters. Let me see the artwork. Sounds good.
We'll show you the work, no doubt about it. We'll show you the work and see what you think. I'll just put here. Good to see you in chat. To see you in the chat. There we go. There we go. I'll just put that there. There you go. Good to see you in chat. Absolutely. Right. Let's crack on. And we want you just to say a bit, give a few clues, but not give the game away about each interior page. We've got about 5 interior pages just to give the audience or the people in the future.
Okay, so this is the Patriarch's home.
What's going on?
He's a homesteader, meaning he has a plot of land. You can see it's in the mountains. Science City is in Arizona. Where does the Patriarch live? I ain't telling you yet, because you might be a supervillain, and he's got 7 kids he has to take care of.
Absolutely.
So he has a farm right by the lake. You know what I mean? He has everything so that the kids can have a good, wholesome life. They homeschool. And the kids all on the matter of fact, when the Patriarch comes home, the daughter's like, "No superpowers, Dad. Like, we don't have superpowers. We're doing farm work. You can't use super." So he, you know what I mean? Like, the kids are like, they revel in the fact that, "Dad, you can't use your superpowers. We're farming today." Things like that. So he leaves. He goes to Science City, and you can see there's a hole in the ground on a baseball field. So a kid.
Look at the perspective on this one. The way he's zooming out. This has got to be one of the best panels at the top here.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So I'm glad you like it. So look how fast he's taken off. He's getting dressed as he's flying, because he just saw the news. And you don't have the word balloons in yet, but the word balloons are basically, where's the Patriarch? It's been 18 hours. This kid is down this well for 18 hours. Because
Pressure.
And Regina, the reporter, that's the same reporter from the first issue.
The lipstick girl.
Yeah, she's going, "Well, where are you? What were you doing that's more important than this?" Well, what was he doing? He was sleeping, and
was he with another lady? Is she a bit of a stalker type?
So he was with his wife, so he can't just say, like, "I was making lovey-dovey." You know what I mean? So he's just like, "Well, let's get focused." You know what I mean? He can't. And then that's Lucius Kane. That's the suit from issue 1. It's 20 years later. He's now the mayor. So he's a bad guy. This guy in issue 1 sold his soul to the devil for power.
Politician, full enough.
Right. So that's why stand some politicians. So he's already talking bad about, he's just like, "Well, where's the Patriarch? Where's the kid's life is on the line." And now he finally shows up, and they can't go down because everything will crumble. You know what I mean? So and if you turn the page, you see what the Patriarch does. You see they got like a hose down there that they're putting oxygen, ropes, just trying to keep little Martin alive. So go to the next page, and I'll
all right, here we go. We've pulled your stuff from your campaign page just to give a flavor. Carry on, please.
So this I get really explain without spoiling too much. But let's just say that the experiment went horribly wrong, and
Wow.
you know,
Kirby dots. We love the Kirby dots.
yeah, the Kirby Crackle, yeah. And
Yeah, yeah.
I just said, there's a vortex with Kirby Crackle, and Renzo knew exactly what I was talking about. And I choreographed the pages of what Mary Sue is doing. I don't want to tell you what she's doing, but let's just say she's doing what needs to be done, but not what they want her to do. That blonde woman is her immediate supervisor.
Got
And
you.
there's just chaos going around. You look at the last panel. There's bodies laying on the ground, and
Crikey.
Mary
That's
Sue,
gonna hurt in the morning, son.
yeah, Mary Sue is bleeding to death. So this whole story is her life passing before her eyes.
Got it. It's flashing
And then,
before our
and,
eyes.
then, and she rallies herself, and basically saves the day before dying. Is what But she wakes up in the hospital because otherwise,
Speaking of which,
yeah.
do tell. Just a little bit.
So she wakes up in the hospital surrounded by her family, and I'm not telling you anything about this other than look at that beautiful art and coloring, because I can't spoil it.
We're going to have a little look here. We'll just put it full screen, and then we're going to look at the next slide. I tell you what, Renzo,
Yeah,
we're almost sure that he's upped his game, even from the first issue. What do you
yeah.
think he's saying that? Do you think he's almost like you two have kind of formed a pact, a Faustian pact, where
Brendo even
he
says it.
knows he's getting the work from you now? He can relax and actually know he's getting lots of work, including the new Batman comic you're doing, the Street Guy, the cop that's secretly a vigilante. That you can. It's almost like you're becoming the Stan, and he's becoming the Jack Kirby. Almost like you're your own comic company, John.
Yeah, well, I'll make it. I have 4 comics in the works, maybe 5. You see that panel right there? That panel, she was supposed to be topless, but just covering her arms. And Renzo's like, not Mary Sue. She's, he didn't like that the bad guy could see her topless, so he changed it. I mean, he did the right choice. He did
Well, yeah, it's all about these little details, isn't it? And that, and certainly negligees would be certainly very fragile in battle. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
And
And
then you see her eyes are glowing, just like the patriarch's eyes are glowing.
yes, when he was cutting through the meteor like butter, yeah. So
Yeah, so
it's that eye
she's
thing.
sprayed.
That's when things are turning bad.
Yeah, so that shows you how desperate she is. But again, she doesn't know she has powers. And then this woman here is a major minor character, if that makes sense.
I got you.
You're gonna see.
Cast.
Yeah, so this is the first appearance of his lawyer. That's his lawyer, and you think politicians are bad. Wait do you see lawyers?
I was just thinking, politicians, lawyers. Are we sensing a theme here?
And he's also the crooked businessman.
Got
You know, he didn't. He is now officially crossing the line into supervillainy in this particular issue. He did shady things. He actually did some heroic things. That's how he got rise to prominence. His name is Philip Manning. He's going to be the Lex Luthor of Science City, and he did heroic things. He built Science City. He did innovative technologies. He took risks on an architect that everybody thought was crazy.
Yeah.
And he made like an ecological wonderland. Like Science City is all solar powered. It uses the heat. It's near Yuma, Arizona. I don't know how well you know that, but I read someplace that in Yuma, Arizona, there's so much direct sunlight that they said that if they were to make a 100 square mile solar farm, they could power like the West Coast solar power. Because
that's interesting, isn't it? Well, hopefully that'll get done for you, our American cousins. You know what I mean? Because obviously, cost of living is affecting us Brits and us Americans, isn't it? You know what I mean? We're up against it a bit.
So that's what.
Inflation.
So I was like, okay, so what if they built the city and all the skyscrapers, everything was solar panels? So every window is a solar window. You know what I mean?
Window is solar panel. How clever!
So there's like it's got moving sidewalks. It's Science City. Everything about it is it's just modeled after Plato's Atlantis, the way Plato described Atlantis. Circles where everybody has, this area is where the farms are, this area is where the industry is, and there's parks at equidistance. In the absolute center, there's a hospital that everybody, it's designed based on classical Greek literature, and that's why there's a Colossus of Rhodes in the middle. But that's another thing, is that Colossus has Philip Manning's face on it because he is an egomaniac and he wants everybody to know that he's the benefactor.
Very good. So there's a little twist on it, that sense of pride and egomania.
And you see dirigibles
Dirigibles,
because
yeah.
they're ecologically better. They don't use hydrogen anymore. They use helium, and they got solar. The dirigibles are actually covered in solar panels to power their own fans. So that's, again, I could spoil him, but there
No.
was the Y2 plague in my comic book really happened. All the electronics, everything fell, and there was a worldwide disaster. Planes were falling out of the skies, and earlier superheroes were dealing with that. He was a young, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed businessman, and he wanted to bring back dirigible travel.
Yes.
Let's travel like luxury yachts. We could go across to Europe in a dirigible, spend some time and make it look like the Titanic, old suits and stuff like that. So like when you bought a ticket onto his dirigibles, they actually gave you old-fashioned clothes, and and everybody loved it. It was a nostalgia.
It's an experience, classical.
Right. It was the whole experience. Like
Like the Orient Express or something.
right. You could go to New York and LA in 3 or 4 days, but the journey, and that was his thing. It's the journey. It's the journey. And then when all of this happened, he was the only way to transport food and medicine.
Yes.
So he became a hero. Everybody loves him. Like, oh, dirigibles were traveling around the country because all the trucks, all the solenoids were frozen and everything like that. So everything. So he became fabulously wealthy. He was an entrepreneur. He had secret. Everybody has secret like desire, but he went out of control. He built Science City, and now Science City has a mayor that's not him. Science City has a superhero that's not him. And he's just like, doesn't matter what I do, there's somebody better than me. So what else do you do? You want superpowers. I always wonder, why doesn't Lex Luthor give himself superpowers? You know what I mean? Like in a world of DC or Marvel where you could irradiate a spider, why doesn't Lex Luthor? He's the biggest genius. Doesn't he figure out how to make himself fly and invulnerable? And so that's what Philip Manning is doing. He's just like, if there are superpowers and people, there's no pattern to it. He's like, it's random. So he's figuring out that they come from someplace.
He's trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
So he can get some power, possibly.
Right. Yeah. So he's trying to work it so that he is going to be the top dog. And maybe he will be a superhero. Maybe that will satisfy him. Not really, but let's be real. That's what he's telling himself.
Yes.
When he's the most powerful guy, he'll be benevolent. He'll be good. But there's always somebody more powerful. And there is a Superman type superhero in this world, Captain Atlas. He is the great.
We've heard whispers of him when we've been listening to your show in the bath, John. We've heard whispers of this.
Captain Atlas is. Captain Atlas. He was a Korean War fighter pilot. I can't spoil him, but he's been around forever. Like he's got a doomsday story where he fought, a creature that came to Earth and fought and almost died and everything like that. That was the day Captain Atlas bled because he's totally invincible. Things like that. He'd
be the kind of guy to take on the guy, the Subterranean Hulk guy in the.
He would one punch. He would one punch the Subterranean. But the Captain Atlas has a weakness, and the weakness is devastating.
Well, we can't know what that is, but we're guessing it's not kryptonite. But it sounds to me like, judging by the ingenuity of your storytelling, it'll be something that unique. That's a nice twist.
I think it's going to be issue 5.
Issue 5.
The stories in issue 5. So Heroic Tales number 2 is going to be Mary Sue and introducing the Raven. Issue 4 is going to be 2 different characters that I haven't introduced before. One story is going to be called Let's Save the Dinosaurs, and it's my response to Doctor Who. So you're going to love it. I
like that one.
It's a time traveling hero inspired by Doctor Who. I'm not telling his name yet and everything like that, but he actually has a hot female companion.
She's anything like Sarah from.
I'll
try and keep myself calm.
She's a sexy redhead. She looks more like Amy Pond.
Of course, she'd have to be. Of course.
And then there's another female character in it that I'm going to introduce, and in issue 4, I don't even want to tell her name yet because it's so good. Somebody's going to steal it, and
keep it quiet. Are you going to trademark any of these characters?
Yeah, I was just looking up trademark yesterday.
We don't hear a lot about that in indie comics, but trademark's important because obviously if a company rocks up, they can just take it.
Yeah, I got a trademark. Yes, I did already. Yes, I did already. So issue 4 is going to have how time travel works and how the multiverse works. So that's going to be my time travel multiverse issue. And then issue 5, it's going to be called The Boy and His Dog, and then The Life of Captain Atlas. So that's I have to tell those stories in that order, so that the main story, because it's all going someplace. I have to tell that in that order for everything to make sense.
So you've really like an RPG setting. You've got your background, you've got your campaign arc, you've got your character sheets with their backgrounds and that. So you've got all these jigsaw pieces, and then you're placing down. You're letting all unfold organically. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's almost like an RPG brought to life in a sense for
Yeah,
you.
like Heroic Tales 10 is going to be like when the super team forms.
Double figures. So you're actually in it for the long haul. So
Yeah,
10
so,
is when
so I
go
have
on.
up to 10. I mean, I have past 10 planned, but like up to 10 is like the first campaign, I guess.
And that's when the supergroup forms. Yeah.
Yeah, that's when the supergroup forms of all the characters that not all of them, not all of them, because issue 2 of Mary Sue, I introduced like 20 superheroes, like cameos, because they're studying superpowers. So they're look what all these guys have commonalities.
We like that. It's almost like a chocolate box of superheroes. We like that.
So, and each one of them is going to get a card. So if
Cool.
I don't. I'm not egotistical enough to think that I'm going to make $20,000, because that's what it would have to do to unlock all the cards. But you could buy the cards, and then you could get all the secrets of what their powers are and stuff like that. So
Speaking of cards and your campaign and some merch, tell us about your campaign, John Bua.
okay, so I only have 2 comics, so I could have made 4 variants, but again, I would have had to have paid for more artwork on the back. So I compromised. It's a flip book, so you get 2 covers for $10, and you get 2 stories for $10. So really, it's $5 a comic if you want to look at it like that, because you get a full story times 2 in each issue. I can't do anything about the shipping. That's the way the world works.
Yeah,
So
it is what it
and
is.
then so you could buy $10 plus shipping, get my comic. You could buy $10 plus shipping, get the variant comic, or you could pay $20 and get both of them plus 1 shipping. I tried to make it so that nobody's screwed over by shipping.
Yeah.
Shipping is out of my control. I tried to reduce the damage as
Well,
much
you've got
as
the
possible.
digital version, haven't you?
I
Though
have a digital version too. Yes, $6 you could get issue 2 digital. $10 you could get issue 1 and 2. Okay. Then there's add-ons. Add-ons are after you bought one of the main things. Oh, the other main tier is issue 1 and issue 2. So for some people who want it physically and missed out on number 1, you can pick that up also. Now we go down to the add-ons. For $10, you could get all 7 cards.
Wow.
And it adds on to your ship, so it's reduced. I think it's like $1 shipping. You know what I mean?
Have they got stats on the back?
Yep. Each one of them has their role playing stats on the back.
Look at you. Put you on the big screen so we can see those. Oh yeah.
And a couple of people were like, "It looks so retro," and I'm like, "Yeah,
That's the idea.
that's the idea. That's the idea." Like Oscar right now is working on cards for Eddie is Doomed,
Got you.
and it looks like 90s.
That's a side project, but
Yeah,
it looks like
you know what I mean? So
90s.
those cards are going to be completely different because it's looking like 90s cards. These cards are supposed to be like they came out in the 80s. Oh, we got a T-shirt, a Patriarch T-shirt.
That T-shirt looks so rich, almost like a Praetorian Guard, or like some kind of Roman kind of soldier with the rich purple, the gold trim, and the white. Looks beautiful.
Yeah, I'm really proud. I don't want to take anything away from Renzo, but I'm really strict about my designs. Like I design the characters. In Eddie is Doomed, Oscar is co-designing most of the characters. That's different. You know what I mean? But in Heroic Tales, I design everything. I'm really proud. So the Patriarch, I've talked about this many times, but for me, superheroes, everything comes from the name.
Yeah.
And he was inspired by Superman. And like, if you read Kingdom Come, Superman is the father figure of all the superheroes, to the point when he goes back to Smallville, all the kids start becoming bratty, and then Superman has to come back and give them all a spanking. It's very crystal clear that he is the patriarch of
That's a good summation of it.
So I was like, oh, the patriarch, he's the patriarch of DC. And I was like, patriarch is a good, so I wanted a male figure. He's the patriarch, inspired by Superman. And then I'm like, okay, it's a Greek Roman word. So I wanted to have a Greek Roman motif. So I was like,
Motif, a theme, yeah.
that big meme, all men think of the Roman Empire. Well, he's all things manly. He's a husband, he's a father, he's a protector,
He's
he's a
a
fighter.
stoic male.
Right. So, all right, he thinks about the Roman Empire. So I gave him like a Roman theme. The purple and gold. The purple because the Roman Emperor wore purple. The gold because gold, you got to have a contrast in a superhero costume. And then the white because he's a good guy, angelic. Mary Sue is even more good than the patriarch. That's why she's got more white. You know,
So
Mary Sue is a lot more idealistic.
so her appearance and the purity of the white actually reflects her internal
Right.
modus operandi. She's very much has a pure outlook on life.
Right. Like she was sheltered. She grew up rich. She grew up working in her father's, so she could afford to have like a really rosy, and that's why it's sky blue, the symbol. So yeah, and then uh, uh, Renzo's original art. That's the other thing that we could get on the campaign.
Well, funnily enough, you know what? It's almost like we have synaptic brain link. We have a Bronze Age brother in the house. We hear you. It's deafening. Take a look at this, folks.
Yep.
This is cool. Tell us
Yep.
about Renzo's original artwork, and can we get it?
Yeah. Obviously, it's unique. So the first person who buys it gets it. And these are right here. I'm looking right at them at my table. That first page of the patriarch and his wife in bed together. I was like, Renzo, can I buy that from you? He's like, yeah, sure. So
Yeah.
I bought it from him, and he lives in Mexico, and I sent him comics. I sent him a big box of everything for issue 1, and it never got to him. So it's rough sending stuff to Renzo. So he chose this courier service. It was like $100 to send everything to me.
Yeah.
So I paid for the courier service, I paid for the artwork, and then he was just like, here's all artwork that I have. He was moving at the time, so he just sent me a big bundle. So I said, I'm going to put this on the campaign page. So anything, this goes right to Renzo.
So
I'm just gonna take out because I got to ship it. I got, you know what I mean. So I'm
just minus shipping.
yeah. So I got to take out, the tax, the shipping costs, stuff like that. The rest of it goes to Renzo. So
This helps Renzo as an artist. It helps
right,
invest
yeah.
in your future relationship to work together on the street level Batman character as well. So really, you're becoming your own small LLC or small comic company in a sense, almost like a startup.
Right. So these are all hand drawn, one of a kind. On paper. What's it? 11 by, I forget the actual numbers, but standard comic book art
11 by
paper.
17 kind of standard comic page.
And I got to tell you, I'm so tempted to buy all of these. I can't just keep. I got to buy them. I got to pay. I buy the rights to take his artwork and make a comic book out of it, but he owns the physical. I have no claims to any of that. That's just the right thing to do. But that patriarch, that is the artwork for the card. Man, I'm so tempted. It's right over there on the table.
That's beautiful. I'd be surprised if you didn't buy that one, to be honest with you, John. That is beautiful. And we like how it contrasts with that's him looking like Superman perfect. But the next one, his costume's wrecked and
Yeah,
shredded.
this is him towards the end of the story.
Imagine both of those on your wall.
Yeah,
They're like twin towers, wouldn't they? They'd look. Oh,
the patriarch. There's, how the Fantastic Four have unstable molecules.
yeah.
They have that. It's called proto matter, and most of the superheroes wear proto matter suits. So yeah, they'll get ripped and torn, but they'll heal over time.
Oh, right.
They're self cleaning. They actually will disinfect wounds. Patriarch won't wear one for reasons that will be explained.
Explain later. We see.
So that's one of the things is his kids are like a little slave factory, just making costumes for him because he's constantly ripping them. But there's a big reason why he won't wear them.
I'll tell you what, speaking of merch and costumes, how did this happen? Because when we saw this, we thought, before we even decided it was cover, we just tweeted you on X, said, that's got to be an alt cover. That's your cover. This.
Okay.
Will I like your Tales too? Who's it for? And tell us about this cosplay.
Okay, so I made T-shirts for Mary Sue. That's one of the things I want to do is make. I'm really proud of that symbol that I made for Mary Sue. So again, Mary Sue's religious. She's a virgin. She doesn't drink. So
that makes sense.
You know what I mean? And she's a nerd. She goes to school and she studies. What happens to nerds when they go to college? they get teased, they get made fun of. You know what I mean? So, like I said, perfection has a
Really?
cost, and they're just like, oh, little perfect Mary Sue, blah 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 blah. So, she finds a group of other nerds. They're all religious and they're all scientists. So they form a group, and they call it the St. Thomas Society.
Yeah,
St. Thomas is the saint, the apostle that when Jesus came back, he wanted to see the wounds in Jesus's hands as proof that, you know,
of course.
this, you are who you say you are, kind of thing. So to me, in my world, St. Thomas is the patron saint of scientists. I need a little bit of proof. I'm sorry, I need a little bit of proof. So I was like, what would invoke that? So hands with the stigmata, and then the eyeballs for seeing. So I drew a real rough sketch. Renzo drew that out, and I'm like, that's perfect on a t-shirt. Like a superhero symbol should be like what you're wearing right now. That Superman symbol is the ultimate superhero symbol that goes great on a t-shirt. So the patriarch, that goes great on a t-shirt. So I made this, and I'm like, what what would sell it? Hot chick. So Martina Markota is one of the hottest chicks in the world, and we talk a lot on Twitter. We talk a lot on, I'm in a Discord and everything, and she's a model. So I said, if I sent you a T-shirt, would you? She's like, oh yeah, sure, sure. So my intention was to sell T-shirts.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? And she modeled, and I started showing them on Twitter. People like, you got to make a cosplay cover. So
Absolutely.
I literally got these pictures like 3 or 4 days before I went live. So I didn't have the cosplay cover made. So this is a holdover for a cosplay cover. So then Joe's gonna hate me, but I sent a Patriarch shirt to Joe Sontag. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He does a comic called Reaper Destroy. He looks like the Patriarch.
Got you.
So I sent him a shirt. I was like, will you pose for a cosplay cover? And he said, yeah. And then he sent me a picture, and he's got a baseball cap. You can't see it. And I can't use it I could use it to sell t-shirts, but I can't use it because I was hoping he would be like this, and then we could Photoshop some monsters behind him and stuff, and then have a flip book. So I could only do the Martina Markota cover. Unless somebody else looks like the Patriarch wants a shirt, I'll send it to you.
Well,
I'm not going to do it.
but that's the beauty of this Star Trek technology that we call social media. You can actually negotiate. Happy accidents happen, like
Right.
somebody wearing your T-shirt. You have a chat with somebody on Discord. Before you know it, you've got a quote unquote, as you say, a hot variant cover, and somebody looks like your Mary Sue character. You're actually mixing your creativity with a merch, which brings in an extra revenue stream. So
Yeah.
you guys can keep going and paying Renzo, etc., etc. So you've almost got this kind of clustering, coalescing islands of creativity by the vast frontier of the internet. It's a
Happy
different way
accidents.
of working, isn't it?
Yeah. I you know I keep saying it's about comics. I got involved in a little bit of the negativity drama going on. I'm only human. And then once I realized that this doesn't,
Is it worth it?
yeah, this doesn't sell books. This doesn't, you know, and I'm starting to see signs that all that negativity is harming the people that do it. So I'm glad I removed myself from it. A couple people would talk bad about me, and I'm just like, I'm not even going to engage, because these people, they clip you and make fun of you. So even defending yourself, you're losing.
Yeah.
I try to say that to one of my buddies. I'm like, every time you defend yourself, they clip you and make fun of you, and they're making ad revenue. So nobody's making ad revenue off of me,
No.
making fun of me. So and they leave me alone. They leave me alone. Now,
Do you know
because
what
of that,
if
people have been talking to me, and this guy, he's not drama guy, and now I got a cosplay cover by Martina Marco because you know what I mean. You reap what you sow, kind of thing.
you
You know,
do? It's almost like what you put out reflects back on you.
yeah,
So if you just, from the very start of this positivity journey, considering the 3 years we just had of dark times, and we know what we went through and what the politicians nobody did. We know exactly what
right,
happened, but we thought, what can we do on social media that's different? So we thought gentleness, grace, gentleness, and generosity will be our guiding stars. Treat people as we ourselves would like to be
right,
treated, and be positive. If can we find one thing, something nice to say about somebody else? It's as simple as that.
right.
And just stay away from all that stuff. There's places to go, but long term, it won't work. It's a toxic business model.
It may give you a spike in the short term, but in the long term, it's bad.
It's bad.
That's what I believe. I mean, I can't prove it yet, But that's what I believe, and I think I'm starting to see. I mean, look at Marvel. Their sales are in the toilet, and I do think the comic book company is starting to make a turn, but the internet drama, we're a couple of years behind all that. Sooner or later, I guarantee you, like within 4 years, if these drama farmers are still around, they're going to be like, I was never drama. I'm positive. Let's focus on comics.
Cognitive dissonance. I tell you what, you've already got the proof, John. A successful campaign that's going to be even more successful. That the proof is in the pudding, and
Yep.
your positivity.
And I got good pudding.
We think you've got good pudding. That's what we would say.
I'm going to put that on my comic. How's that?
That would be a great phrase for your comic. We've got good pudding. That would be fantastic. We think, as a lover of pancakes and lemon meringue pie and coffee cake, anything like that, we've got good pudding. I tell you what.
Now I got to ask you.
Go on.
Are you in England? I forgive
UK,
me.
Britain.
Okay, so you are. Well, Great Britain is everything, right? Are you in England, Scotland?
Oh well, in England.
Okay, you're in England. So
Scottish, Irish.
Americans are notorious with. I know you guys can pick up an accent from 2 blocks down the road. He's got a Yorkshire and a Liverpool, and we don't hear it. But we do hear the difference between
we can easily sound Irish, Scottish if we have too much to drink.
Oh, like I could tell the difference between Philadelphia, Boston, and New York. I don't know if you guys could, but whatever. Is a pancake the same as an American pancake?
Slightly different. I think you guys have them slightly thicker. I mean, I was up at 3 o'clock in the morning of the other night, and after we've been doing far too much X because we're pushing for growth. We think get the right amount of numbers, you can grow the community, and you can spread the positivity around. And afterwards, we thought, what can we? It just feels like something to eat. So we've got these pancakes, and we put on sugar, butter, salted butter, of course, and some lime juice because we didn't have any lemons, and it was very nice, a bit unusual. And we had about 4 of those, but 4 of the pancakes we cook would probably make one of yours.
So yours are more like crepes, then?
Crepes, more like crepes, the French crepes. Yeah, yeah,
okay.
yes. So
okay. I love them both, but we all have to agree a waffle is more superior.
I think that's got to be a clobbering time, John Bua special. That's is it going to be waffles or pancakes? I know Tim. We had him on. He's the creator of Melvin. I think he was a waffle guy.
Yeah.
Are you a waffle guy as well, then, John?
Yeah. Well, because waffles use the same batter as a pancake. It's just that you put it in a form, and it comes out kind of like that steel roof that I was on, corrugated,
almost so like a Foreman grill kind of thing.
Yeah, so it crisps, so it's got more surface crisp area, and then you put the syrup or the butter, and it's got little square holes that holds everything in. And then when you know what I mean, like a pancake, everything kind of just goes where it goes. I mean, I love them both. Don't get me wrong. Now I want both of them.
If somebody says, John, to us, waffle or pancakes, the correct answer is, of course, yes, please.
Yes. But pudding is different in England than America, right?
Well, you can have a Yorkshire pudding with sausages in it. You know what I mean? You can have it with Sunday dinner, or you can have pudding, which is your classic kind of apple pie with custard or ice cream with
apple pie is pudding?
Apple pie is pudding, yeah. It can be a pudding. Basically a dessert, you know what I mean?
Pudding basically means a dessert.
Yeah, well, yeah, basically. It's a more relaxed term for a dessert, yeah?
Because a pudding in America is specifically like it's not quite a cream, but it's not quite a solid. It's just like gelatinous, and it's usually sweet. So there's chocolate.
It's pastry with stuff in it.
You could dice up fruit and everything like that. But if you get chocolate pudding, it's semi liquid solid. It's in between liquid, it's in between solid bowl of, like, if I was to scoop it out, put it on, it would form to the container, but slowly. That's a pudding. So there's vanilla pudding, there's strawberry pudding. It's usually sweet, and it's a specific substance.
Are you a chocolate mousse kind of guy? Because the other day we got a follower on X who makes brilliant chocolate mousses and desserts and it was National Mousse Day, and we thought, not the creature, but chocolate. It was National Chocolate Mousse Day.
Chocolate mousse is awesome. Chocolate mousse is awesome. My favorite of all desserts is whipped cream. Just you get whipping cream, you whip it up, and my mom made it a specific way, and I make it this is whipped cream, ladies and gentlemen. You get a special bonus feature. You get a metal bowl. You put the metal bowl in the refrigerator overnight, so it's ice cold. You take the whipping cream, you put the whipping cream in the ice cold metal bowl, and then you get a whisk. You get a powered one. You whip it up, whip it up, whip it up, and it's just liquid wicket, and then all of a sudden it turns into whipping cream. And then you whip it just a little bit more. Then you add the sugar, because if you add the sugar first, it doesn't whip.
No.
And then you gotta taste it. There's no correct amount. You gotta taste it to make sure. And then a couple, like 2 tiny drops of vanilla extract, bink bink, like that, and then you give it a little whip, and there you go. And you got to eat it fast because it'll collapse and turn back into whipping cream after a while.
So it's got that souffle timing. You've got to get it just right to get the right amount of height, and then get it eaten before it collapses.
The problem with whipped cream is, like, if you're having dinner. Okay, Kyle's over for dinner. We have our delicious steak dinner and everything like that. Then we're done. Yeah. I got to go make the whipped cream. You know what I mean?
So I'm eating my man food, and you're in the kitchen doing the cream.
No, I'm saying after me and you eat, we have our drinks, we have our steaks, with the burgers, whatever. And then I'm like, are you ready for dessert? Yeah, I'm ready.
Yes.
Give me 10 minutes. I got to go make the cream. You got to make it right before you serve it. I don't want no Cool Whip. I don't want ready whip from a can. And
no.
I'm not joking. That's all I need is my wife laughed at me. We went to a board game convention years ago.
And you can make this. Is this your mum's specialty, or you learned it from your mum?
Yeah. My mom, we had 7 kids. My mom had, learned how to cook. She was a great cook. And my wife and I went to a board game convention, and
it's interesting. Go on.
And we had a breakfast. You wake up from like 6 to 9. They had breakfast, and my wife's like, "I'm on vacation. I'm sleeping." And I'm like, I'm getting breakfast. I'm getting, and I wanted to go out and play board games. So I was getting up, going there, and bacon, pancakes, waffles, everything. And then they had whipped cream. So I just had a bowl of whipped cream, and I sent a picture. She thought it was the funniest thing in the world because I didn't put the whipped cream on anything. I was just, that's my favorite dessert, whipped cream.
Whipped cream is your favorite dessert. We can understand that. We can't decide between coffee cake and lemon meringue pie. If somebody offered us that, we'd say yes, please.
Yeah, coffee cake is awesome. Oh man,
bitter and sweet, just like us.
Is it like crumbly, like, because we call coffee cake is in America is a term for a bunch of things, but there's crumb cake. Crumb cake is a specific coffee cake. It's usually square, and the top is crumbly. So like when you take a bite, crumbs fall all over the place. It's messy.
Send a picture of that. You Americans got your own version of the coffee cake, then, like a coffee cake.
On Twitter. Send me Bianca's artwork. Send me what you call we'll have a food discussion on Twitter.
Food discussion there, and also, but a coffee cake. I remember making one with our beloved mother, bless her, guiding star. And basically, we made it triple stack from a morning TV recipe. It was triple stack. You've got your coffee cream in between the layers, yeah? And on top, extra coffee cream on top, but with white chocolate, shards broken into it, and then walnuts on top of that. It was the mother of all coffee cakes, you know what I mean? It was almost as big as our head.
Yeah. Unwieldy to eat.
Unwieldy to eat. Oh, that was part of the fun. It's just, how do I do this politely? There's no way to do it. You just got to put your face into it and have fun, Right. Speaking of sweet and tasty things, what about we show the Heroic Tales 2 trailer? You down for that?
Yeah, sure.
Let's do it. Right, here we go. Right then, let's see if we can get this working. No, dearie. There we go. Just remove that one for the time being, and we'll just put this up here. So I'm going to press.
I gotta get a haircut.
I'll tell you what. I have to say we like that. We like it a lot.
Yeah, I, uh,
Wonder who
it,
made that one. Who made? Wonder who made it. You must have a secret trailer guy.
some guy who likes pancakes better than waffles.
So moving swiftly on, why do you create indie comics? And it's funny about trailers, though. They've become this modern way to capture the gestalt of your marketing campaign, and almost like it's like a segue into the rest of your campaign and the tiers and the merch and the background and that. It looks great as part of the overall crowdfunding thing. It's kind of and with video being the modern language of younger people that were came after the Bronze Era, like you and me. Yeah. So why do you create indie comics, John? And when did your journey with indie comics begin? Then
I kind of told the story that
did a bit, didn't you?
when I started my YouTube channel, I had no intentions of making a comic. Uh, I was playing role playing games since forever. I remember around fourth grade we had copies of Dungeons and Dragons playing. We didn't know what we were doing, but it was always fun. I love this whole idea of like storytelling and Dungeons and Dragons. I always called it like interactive storytelling. And then as you get older, I started to make like whole campaigns, and I had a group that would come to my house and we would play our superhero game, and it was all one overarching story. And then COVID happened, and everybody stopped playing. And then we got into like a political discussion or a political fight because I'm like, when are we going to play our Village Vigilantes? We got to finish the story. Like we were literally, I'm not talking. I mean, I'm not joking. It was like 5 years, and we were about 2 or 3 sessions away from finishing the main story, the big reveal.
Wow.
And I was like, I
Oh
can't
yeah.
wait to be like, how brilliant! It's all tied together. It's this multiverse. They had different characters on different worlds, and they were all tied together and everything like that. And I never got to do it because, like, oh yeah, once there's a vaccine, we'll start playing again. And I'm like, I'm not taking that vaccine. Like, what are you talking about? I'm like, it didn't exist 3 months ago, and now we're going to take it. I said, it takes 10 years to bring a medicine to it. So long story short, we got to do it, and they won't come to my house because their vaccine won't work unless I have one too. Their protection won't kick in. Their bulletproof vest won't protect them from bullets unless I also am wearing a bulletproof vest. So we kind of had exchange words, and that was the end of that. So I
Okay.
always had this story that I wanted to tell, this big involving different planes of existence and everything. Very inspired by Dungeons and Dragons. And next thing you know, I'm done reading Marvel comics. Marvel and DC kind of just ticked me off. So I'm buying back issues. I'm talking about comics. I had one friend that would come over from that group. We've been friends since third grade. We keep playing, but like I just was like, I just want to tell the story. So then I started making comics. So this comic is me hopefully finishing that superhero campaign that I made, and
So in a sense, even though it's come out of a sad situation, almost like a phoenix out of the ashes,
right,
something good's come from it, whereby you can take control of the story yourself, and you
right.
forge a new alliance with Renzo. You're helping him; he's helping
So
you.
me and Renzo, I want to tell the story, but no joke, for me to finish that campaign, I would have to make 20 issues of Heroic Tales.
I wouldn't bet against you.
Yeah, I thank you, thank you. The there's two factors, like money. Yeah, I laid out the money for the first issue, and the first issue is paying for the second issue. So this issue right here, the second issue, is paying for the third issue. So I put my goal at 1,000 because I already had the money to make issue 2. It was coming out whether or not I sold one copy, because it was already paid for. I took the loss for the first issue. I didn't mind that. That was fun. And
But you're enthusiastic. You're still learning.
right. And I made mistakes, but now I got a streamlined process. So I don't need as much money as I needed for the first issue. So I could keep going. So this is the model for my company. Like right now, you're literally funding issue 3. So to be totally blunt, I need more than $1,800 to make issue 3. So
Yes.
like the campaign will go till July. I'm hoping we could get to like $6,000-7,000 because I could reasonably make issue 3 on that. And then, I got these 2 independent comics that I might have to pay out of pocket because I don't want to use Heroic Tales money to fund them. But they're gonna be so good. Eddie is Doomed is gonna be so good. And then I got my secret project that Renzo and Oscar are working on. It's I'm not telling anybody, but I'm not telling anybody until it's time to tell them, but it's mythology and history merged. So it's I got a degree in Greek and Roman history, so I'm going to
Sure, you
satisfy.
got the degree.
So
Yeah.
I'm going to satisfy, and I love Norse mythology. So I already told too much, and I'm going to merge these historical, real events with these mythological events. And I'm going to answer questions like this is my blatant movie pitch.
Well,
I'm
that's
not
good.
above, this comic the secret project that I'm working on. Like Eddie is Doomed is too esoteric. Comic book people, not only comic book people, but like real snooty comic book people are gonna love it. The average comic book fan will be like, yeah, it's okay. You know what I mean? So I know that that's a niche market, but the secret project that I'm working on now, this is the kind of thing that like Jeff Bezos is gonna be like, yeah, we got to make a movie of this.
So you'll have one that's a potential IP reach in terms of you could pitch it to a movie studio.
Yeah.
With the amount of ideas you've got, that you must have at least one idea that you can do that with.
That,
Got a
that's
question for you. We've got a question for you on that. The movie pitch thing, yeah, because if Marvel can do what they're doing so greatly at the moment, we think you've definitely got a winner with Heroic Tales and the Patriarch. Do you think if you want 20 issues, that's 5 years. You need to be on a quarterly schedule. 5 fours are 20. So if you could make a quarterly schedule, so basically every 3 months, 6, 9, 12. So if you get 4 out a year over 5 years, you've got your 20 issues to tell the tale that you want to tell.
yeah.
Possible?
I don't. Yeah, because between the Patriarch and Heroic Tales, like maybe Renzo could do. We could probably do one Patriarch, one Heroic Tales a year.
Tick tock, tick tock.
But that would mean that Renzo would have to stop his other commitments. You know what I mean? I'm not going to tell him. No,
To
you
do
only
that.
have to work for me. And I can't do that. So he's got to do what he's got to do. He's got a family, and then what? All of a sudden, I decided I'm sick, or I got and then I'm people. If Renzo said I'm available for work, everybody's going to jump. Let's be realistic.
Yeah.
So, but that's the funnel head. That's is how I don't want to rush him because his art is so good, but I would like to do like 2 issues a year. That would be ideal for me, and then maybe a side project. I think that I garnered enough will. Like if I was to this comic campaign, I'm on schedule to be early. Could I launch Eddie is Doomed before this fulfills? And would people be like, you didn't fulfill your like so like I want to put 2 issues in people's hands, and then I'd like to think that I garner enough will so that I could do like Eddie is Doomed campaign and then a Patriarch campaign, and have two. You know what I mean?
So
Because
you've built up that faith, goodwill in the
you're gonna
community,
get
and
it. You're
trust.
gonna get it. You know what I mean? I'm not one of these guys that makes vaporware. I'm not one of these guys that waits 5 years. You're gonna get it because Eddie is Doomed. Renzo doesn't have anything to do with that. You know what I mean? So he could do Patriarch and Heroic Tales, and then Tonic Mole and Oscar could do Eddie is Doomed.
So in a sense, you could have 2 books the equivalent of you'll get this because you're a Bronze Era and Silver Age era kind of guy, almost like Tales of Suspense and Tales to Astonish. You've got the Hulk and Samarin in one issue, and then you get Iron Man and Cap in the other. So that way, you can tell 4 tales with 2 books.
And Eddie is Doomed is a one shot. You know what I mean? And when it's over, it's over. But if people like it, I would like to make goofy Silver Age comics about the superheroes in Eddie's. But Eddie's story is over in that comic.
So it's a one shot, and again, it gives people another flavour of what the Heroic Tales universe is about. Did we miss anybody off your creative team? We thought we'd put this lovely shot together from the campaign page.
So you got me being a lunatic. You got Daniel De La Silva Rodriguez. He's the color of Perfect 10.
Perfect 10. That's a beautiful book. We've got three of those.
I just saw his colors are so good. I was like, Ron Rossetti, he did the art for the suit. He is so good and he's so quick. Unbelievably quick. I was like, what do you mean you're done? I couldn't believe how quick he is. He's not doing comic book art right now. I would like if he comes back to doing comic book art right now. He's got a big family. He got a promotion at work, so he's focusing on that. And I told him, you have an open invite. If you ever want to do comic book art again, I would love to have you. I was lucky to have you. Then we got
So
Renzo.
it could be Renzo and Ron as your two guys in a sense.
Yeah, Renzo did the backup story. I would love to have him. He was always welcome to do a heroic tales. You know, because none of them are going to be backup stories because they're going to be flip books.
Got
So
you.
he's always welcome. And Renzo, what else can I say about Renzo? He's amazing. He's my dream artist. I can't believe that I get to work with him.
John Bua Perez, like the sun.
It's what I picture in my head. It's now when I'm writing scripts, it's in Renzo's art style. Like if he says I don't want to work with you, I think I'm done. I don't want to work with anybody. I'm spoiled.
He's spoiled you for it because he's the one in a sense, you know.
Right? Like how? Like how can I work with anybody else? You know, everybody else is gonna be. Well, you're not Renzo. You know.
You know, you're a bit similar to ourselves in that way, John. You know, when you take to something, you know, like coffee, cake, lemon and pie, it's
Yeah.
hard to take to anything else, you know.
Like your true love, you know, when you get your true
True
love,
love.
she dies in a car accident or something like that. Like, I'll never marry again, you know.
Well,
Renzo's my true love. And then we got Bill Williams over here. He's my letterer, and he's so good.
yeah.
He's so good to the point. Mike
That
Barron.
stood out when we read Heroic Tales once straight away. Wow. Sorry, Marvel DC. We've got some. Well, you know, what we're saying is, what a beautiful standard lettering. It hit us straight away in the face.
Yeah. Oh wow. I got to show you something. Daniel, I said how he disappears. I asked him to update the coloring. I was like, because I said it's happening at dawn. So he goes, oh, I thought it was at midnight. So he recolored the pages, and
Oh
oh my
wow.
god, they look so good.
Some people have just got that knack, you know what I mean? Whether it's the lettering or the colouring or the penciling with Renzo, you just take them because they've just got the look you're after. I mean, anybody who gets Byrne and Perez in one art style, it's like the gleaming sun. I mean, to me, he's your guy who just hopefully he's got, you know, he's got protection. Make sure he stays alive.
Yeah. So I'm gonna bring up this picture if you don't mind.
So
Where
look, is
So
it in,
this is the updated coloring for the page that you already showed.
in private chat? Is it in private chat?
No, I'm working slow. There you go. You could share that. You're the first person to see the updated coloring.
Updated colouring. Let me see where we. Oh, is this it here? Let's have a look. Add to stage. Can we add this to stage? Before presenting screen, move the. Oh,
He
yeah.
literally just
One second. 1 second. I can do it. I can do it. It's just with StreamYard, you have to actually remove one set of media
right.
before you add another. That used to confuse us. Oh, here we go. Tell you what. Look at that sunshine. That
Yeah,
you can see
I,
that straight away. Look at that.
I said I guess it wasn't clear, but it's supposed to be dawn. So he's like got it, and he recolored it.
Yeah, we now see the difference. Now that makes a world difference. Oh my word, look at that, folks. Actually, we've got some exclusives here from John Bua of John's Long Box on the 5 pillars of storytelling live.
You can see all the
We've got
pages.
pancake club, we've got waffles, we've got hot off the press, dawn, gleaming sun, recolored Heroic Tales 2 artwork. That looks gorgeous, John.
Yeah, yeah, that was the
Wow.
mistake. I was a little
Wow.
like, that's not quite right. It was off. I said, let me think about it, and then I was like, it's supposed to be dawn, and oh my god, it's
Whereas before it looked maybe like it was sunset and they're having some
right
evening hug time together, you know. But
because
now,
yeah, because he thought it was
narratively, you see how your color palette is narrative, isn't it?
yeah, that is so good. That is
Yeah,
so
it is
good.
so good. I'm just look at that. We give that the gleaming sun double thumbs up.
Yeah,
Look at that. But see the what do you call it? That little subtlety in your color palette. You know, it's sometimes your color palette is part of the story, isn't
yeah.
it?
Because I was like Daniel, it's a little dark, but you know the campaign was launching, so I had to put something up, even though I wasn't there. And Daniel's like, you got it. I was like, it's dawn. They're farmers. They're waking up at the crack of dawn.
Yes.
You know, and then the night passed because if the last issue he got home basically at dawn, so it's 24 hours later. You know, he spent the day recuperating with his wife. You know, and now he's like, you know what, I'm not going into work today. And then unfortunately, you see he turns on the news, you know, and then he's gone. But that looks awesome.
That I tell you what, just that middle one there, we just I'm obviously there having hug time, but you look straight past them, straight at the sun. I mean,
Yeah,
it's symbolic of Renzo's art. It's symbolic of your optimistic story. It's symbolic of the team heroic tales that you've put together. It's part. It's that sun represents your vision.
yeah,
That panel there, it says it all. You know, what I mean, if you could just clip one panel and say, "What's this guy all about?" Here's a Bronze Age era where, yeah, it's about the hero stuff.
yeah.
But of the Marvel comics we used to love, it was about the characters.
Yeah,
John.
I'm just like I said. When Daniel gets in touch with you, you drop everything because I don't know if he has bad internet connection or if he just purposely leaves the internet for
He's,
whatever.
he's got
So
his own. He's got his own
he's
mischief.
literally talking to me right now, and I'm like, that is so good.
That is so good. Yeah, yeah. Tell him from us that is we call that some of the best colouring we've seen in a long time. That is beautiful, gorgeous. Oh, wait a minute. Master Crenshaw, Battle General. Oh, it's on now. I'll have to catch a replay. Have a great stream, Kyle and John.
Yeah, I almost missed it.
Crenshaw, hello there. Crenshaw, our Battle General. Let me just spell his name right. You know, trying to touch, type, and talk at the same time. You know what guys are like with multitasking. Right, Crenshaw, F.A.O. Just say hello to him. Yes, we've had a great stream with Master. Well, we think he's a genius storyteller, John Bua in the house. I mean, it's been engaging, illuminating, and enlightening, and that sun alone tells its own story. That is absolutely gorgeous. We like that page. Right, we've just got a few more things to do, John. And I tell you what advice would you give, considering you're relatively recent? We suspect you're never too old to have a crack at this, especially in the era now where the internet is a giant comic shop. You've got print on demand. You've
Right.
got social media for the marketing. What advice would you give aspiring creators to
Um.
creative parents, adolescents, and
Well, I
children?
can only give advice for comics. I'm not going to tell you
Yeah,
how to write a novel. I don't know how to write a novel. You want construction advice, how to make whipped cream or make comics, I can help you. But anything else, you're on your own. Um, if you want to make comics, read comics. First off, that's almost a no brainer. Uh, learn the language of comics. Read the masters like Stan Lee, Will Eisner, Jack Kirby, John Romita. All the main guys. Just read all of them. I only read superheroes for the majority of my life, and I'm preaching out into westerns and sci-fi and stuff. They're so good because you got to learn that they're visual and dynamic. Like I gave a criticism to one of my buddies. I said your comic was good, but right in the middle you had the two foe and the villain literally sit in a coffee shop and drink coffee. I said you did exactly what Marvel and DC are. They
yapping and not enough
I said
action.
they could have sparred at the dojo and had the same conversation, you know. And he was like, you know what I mean? I guess so. Listen to criticism. I've been getting a lot of positive criticism. I've seen a couple of videos of negative criticism, and I watched them all. And for the most part, I agreed with all the criticism. You know, you, it hurts. It sucks. Like when I wrote my masterpiece about the world building, and if people told me it sucked, oh man, I was so mad. But they were absolutely 100% right. So you
Hard
know,
to take at the time, but when you think about it and reflect, they just mean well. They're trying to help you be successful.
get a couple of buddies that aren't into comics to read it.
Got you. That's great
You know what
advice.
I mean? I got a friend. She's a PhD psychologist. She reads my comics, and what's funny is her criticism is absolutely worthless because she just doesn't get the medium. She doesn't get what I'm going for. But
Oh,
she tells me, "Oh, it made like the things I want from her. Is does it make sense? Does the storytelling flow? Were you ever confused?" She's like, "No, I'm not confused. I just don't like like you know what I mean." She just does it as a favorite. But I like her criticism because it's stuff I would. I have my wife. My wife's not a comic book fan.
but
She
she
told me,
understands you. But she
right.
understands you.
Yeah. She encourages. She likes that I do that because she says it makes me happy. But like I'll send her the artwork before it's lettered, and she understands now. But the first time I did it, she was like, "What are you asking me?" So I was like, "Tell me the story." You know what I mean? Like because I
You
my
get
big
it without speech bubbles.
right. So my biggest criticism is the Image Comics. Marvel and DC had it mastered. The storytelling in them was awesome, but Image, that was their biggest lack, is the continuity between panels. You know what I mean? Like
Whereas
constantly,
Valiant were a little bit more less flashy art, but more solid storytelling.
like Azrael over here is on the left. John's long box is here on the right, and we're talking. And then the next panel, for no reason at all, Azrael's on the right and I'm on the left. Like if you flip it, it should be the back of our heads. Like that kind of stuff, like stuff that they teach you in movie making. Like
Yeah, the 180 degrees of cinematography, the
right,
camera
it
work.
makes it disconnect. Like all of a sudden, me and you would talk, and the next panel we're in a spaceship. People would be like, "How'd they get to the spaceship?"
Non sequitur.
You know what I mean? So yeah, not so I. That's called storytelling. Storytelling is the ability to convey the story without the words in comic books, at least. So I have my wife who's a normie. You know, she doesn't care about comic books, and she for the most she doesn't know the characters' names. You know what I mean? But she could tell me what's happening with a good and you know, as a writer, you got to realize that most of the storytelling should be told through the art and through the storytelling, to the conveying of, this illusion of we think of each panel as a frame, and when your mind goes back and forth, we kind of fill it in and animate it in our mind. That's where most of the story comes through. The words only tell us the stuff that the art can't tell us, and it's a lot of writers got to understand that. You got to you have that desire to be like, and he wakes up in a phosphorescent gleam, and you know what I mean, become Chris Claremont. But
Whereas
it's funny because I
if you leave the house and go to the local shop and buy pancakes, how can you make that clear? That
right.
journey.
You just show that you're buying pancakes. You know what I mean? If you Mike Barron says use the least amount of words as possible, and I took that to heart, and I used so little words in Heroic Tales #1 that I was like, I think I used too little words. And then Mike Barron said I used too many words. And so I could go figure. And now Bill is lettering. He just lettered the Mary Sue, and he goes, some of these word balloons are tremendous because Mary Sue's not by herself. There's 2 or 3 people in each panel fighting.
We'd certainly err on the side of less words. Whether you can have too few words, I guess if Mike Barron says that, I guess we'd listen to him.
Right.
It's cool that we can actually engage with these master creators.
And that's another thing.
How does that feel when you're actually speaking to these people like
Yeah.
Jim Shooting? That do you feel slightly awed, or Walt Simonson? These people have been heroes of yours during the Bronze Era.
Yeah, I know. But that takes us back to your question. So you read comics, pay attention to the language of comics, understand the medium of comics itself. That's what you have to do if you want to make a comic book. You have to. That's 101. If you're going to be a painter, you have to learn color theory. You have to learn comic book theory, for lack of a better term, how comic books work.
It's Scott McCloud's Understanding Comics. That's a good place to start.
If you want to crowdfund, like it or not, you got to be a salesman. And that's where a lot of people are uncomfortable, and I totally understand. My friends, I got guys who make comics. They like that they could come on my channel and I could do a lot of the talking, because comic books is an introvert activity. It's not like football. When you play football, you got to hang around with a bunch of guys. You whatever, you like drinking at a bar. The whole purpose is to drink with other people. If you drink by yourself, you're an alcoholic. But if you're drinking in a bar, it's whatever. Fishing could be solo, whatever. But you know what I'm saying? Comic books are the only hobby that I could think of it's solo. You're sitting home and you're reading.
What do you do when you want to take? You've got the art, but what about the commercial side of things? Because it actually is commercial art if you want to make any money.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like even Jack Kirby sat in his dingy little basement. If you ever see those pictures, it looks like he was in a dungeon just drawing. I guess he wanted no distractions. He just sat with a window and a light bulb. And so even creating comics is solo. Like when I write, I usually only write on Sundays because there's too many distractions. There's too much stuff going on. I'm working. I'm tired. I don't want to write when I'm tired. I got stuff to do. Saturdays, me and my wife usually do something. And I don't want to. No, I'm writing a comic book, honey. She's like, knock it off. So Sundays, I wake up early. I do my show and I do writing. It keeps. I lost track of what I was even saying, but like practice it, write it. But you got to be a salesman. So
you got to be a salesman,
right? Stan Lee is dead. Stanley, some people got problems with Stanley. Stanley did what Stanley had to do. He became a media. He was a carnival barker that sold comic books. John Romita was able to buy a house, raise kids, pay his bills because Stan Lee was pushing the medium. You know what I mean? John Romita Sr., he drew wonderful pictures. Stan Lee got those wonderful pictures in the hearts and minds of everybody in America. Stan is gone now.
He's
You
the
know,
salesman. He was the
right,
salesman. He got the message across.
right. You know, and my buddy is Brian Bau, who does Wolf and Batsy. It's not his job to sell my comic. You know, when he's doing his Wolf and Batsy stuff, he's like, and heroic tales, and you know, so it's on me to sell it. So you gotta, like it or not, you gotta learn how to sell. Now, I haven't gone to a convention yet. You know,
Are you going to?
I
You want
would
to?
like to. Like, I couldn't because I didn't have any material to sell. So now I got comics to sell. When I get issue 2, because if I have issue 1, people are gonna be like, "Oh, all right, he's got 1 issue." But if I got 2 issues, then people are gonna be like,
Trust.
he's committed.
He's committed, and so can we be.
So I'm going to go to conventions and try to.
Press the flesh. We can see with people like Project Gnosis
Yeah,
and Ball.
that guy
Press.
did it. He did it backwards. He started out in conventions and then he was like crowdfunding. You know what I mean? So now he's doing a book, but that guy could sell ice to an Eskimo. You know what I mean?
He's got the net.
I was joking with him. I was like, yeah, I'll go to a convention and I'll talk to, guy comes up to me. Next thing we're talking about Walt Simonson, talk about the Fantastic Four, and then he leaves happy. That guy's cool, but he didn't buy the comic because I forgot this. I'll talk to you about comics. So that's what I gotta work on. And the last thing I gotta say is stay out of the drama.
Give it drama the elbow.
The people that are into drama are fans of drama. They're not fans of comics. This is my prediction. You could come back in 2-3 years, tell me if I'm right or wrong. But like all of these drama-based websites, I think their sales are going down because the fans who just want comic books don't want to deal with that, and the fans who want drama don't want comics. So
we've got enough problems in our lives. We want the drama inside the comics. We've got enough problems in the real world. We don't need to be preached at, or we've got enough going on. We just want to escape. It's about the comics.
Right. So that's what I think. And be pleasant, because so many people gave me advice. Mike Barron called me up to give me critiques. Mike Barron calls me. Who the hell am I? You know what I mean? This guy's a living legend. So all because you're nice, you're fun. I know I got the gift of gab. I can talk to anybody, but and I understand some people don't have. My wife, if somebody new comes to the house, she'll run and hide in the closet, because she's terrible.
We can be a bit like that.
Yeah, I understand. But you have to.
Good manners take you far.
Unless you got like Neil Adams talent, you have to become a person. You're selling yourself as well as your comic. Unfortunately,
it's one of the same. And we say that 3 things we often talk about when we're gauging whether we back somebody. We look at the creator, we look at the passion in that, we look at the comic, which is the courage to get it out there, and then we look at the cause they fight for, the conviction to keep going and getting out there, press the flesh, meet real people, sell at conventions. You've got 1 or 2 on the table, you believe in what you're doing. If you believe in all those 3 things, we're going to believe either in you, your comic, or the cause you fight for. If you've got all 3 in one, we're definitely going to back you.
Yeah, I've had people that told me, "Oh man, your book looks great, but I'm not backing it because I've been burnt so many times before."
So somebody else's problems have become your problems.
Right. And what am I gonna do? Fight with them? You know what I mean? They're right. They're right in there. You know what I mean? I understand that. So all I can say is this is me, and I. So now I got people in my second campaign going, I didn't buy your first comic because I didn't, but I'm gonna buy a bundle of. That's why I put the issue 1 and 2 bundle, because I proved that I could deliver.
Because you can deliver.
Now, I'm sure there's people just like, okay, once was a fluke. Oh, 2 times a coincidence. Maybe the third campaign they'll all right, this guy's, because like Brian Bau, he just did his 13th issue, and he's the exception to the rule. Everybody's numbers are going down. Brian's, he was like, oh my god, like
he was back within a day or so or something.
It was back like instantly, practically, because he put a low, because he does it all. He's the writer, he's the artist, and everything. You know what I mean? So he doesn't have to pay anybody. So he just a nice little money that he could put aside, but he does it because he's the most passionate guy ever. He does it because he just loves to do it. He would be drawing on napkins. He would be drawing, you know what I mean, telling stories. He just can't help it. So so he just needs shipping and printing or whatever. So he was just like $5,000. $5,000 is my goal. He did like 14,000. He's like the only person that did better. Tonic Mole is another one. Tonic Mole and Brian, everybody else's crowdfunders are going down. Brian, but they also have 13, 14 issues. People are just like, these guys deliver. These guys deliver. They get good buzz. They get good buzz, so they it's all working out. And that's what I would like to do. And I know David Brink now is saying that he's doing well now because he's got a reputation.
Oh yeah, Genuine Comics.
Right. He had every campaign. People are buying back issues too. So that's what I'm hoping.
Like us, we bought one. They thought we like this. Then you go back and you've got to get issue 1. We do weird things like we'll get issue 4. Think we like this. Then we'll go back and get issue 1. We did 3. Was it 4? Then we went and got issue 1. I think it's issue 2 we need now to get.
Yeah.
John, if you were a superhero, what superhero would you be?
Superman.
There you go. That's a nice.
Why would you pick anybody else? Nobody has. I would be Superman, but then I can't help but think as a problem solver. I would be Superman, and then I would go around using my X-ray vision, find all the kryptonite, and heat vision it, and get rid of it.
Got you.
You know what I mean? Like kryptonite is a terrible weakness as far as like it kills him. It whatever. All you have to do is be near it. Like so, you could be a Girl Scout and you could take out Superman. But they're always so dumb. Don't you think Superman would start feeling weak beforehand? Like, wouldn't he have time to leave or use heat? Like, okay, so Lex Luthor
recognize the symptoms straight away and get out of there.
Lex Luthor pulls out the ring. Superman's out the door. Boom.
Yeah.
And then what's he do? He throws a tennis ball at him from 10 miles away. Boom. Takes out Lex Luthor. There you go.
Well,
the magic is one thing, but they always say Superman's vulnerable to magic. Well, give me a superhero who's not vulnerable to magic.
Well, yes, it is the one vulnerability that Superman has. Well, that and
so does Iron Man.
Well, Iron Man, yeah. I mean, Iron Man.
Everybody's vulnerable to magic. The only person who's not vulnerable to magic is another spellcaster. So I always laugh when people go like, Superman's vulnerable to magic.
I wonder, is there going to be any magic? Is there going to be any magic in John's Longbox comics universe? Any magic in there? We wonder. Don't have to tell us. Just wondering.
Well, in issue 1, guy sold his soul to the devil. Is that magic? That's supernatural, right?
It's heading that direction, isn't it?
Yeah. So there is. So so I said that there's 2 means of getting superpowers.
Go on. We're listening.
So I'm got to get issue 2 to understand the basic need. When I say basic, just the most common one, and that's flawed. That causes more problems than it solves. But human beings are like that. They don't care about the cost. The other one is sell your soul to a devil or an angel.
Impact.
Yeah, because there are angels and devils and stuff like that. If you have a superhero world without a supernatural element, you're really missing. And there is magic. There's spellcasters and everything like that. Because my comic book is superheroes plus D&D, and then with the H.P. Lovecraft frosting.
I like that. That's very clippable kind of comment there.
Yeah. So
D&D with.
I have a magic user character. I'm not telling you anything about him, and he may or may not show up, and you're not going to realize it. And then later on, when I do his story, you can be like, "Oh, he was already in the comic."
Oh, you can go back to the back issues. Yeah. Like, oh, he was right there in the crowd or wherever.
Right, like like already in the first issue, there's when issue 9 comes out, say you can that's why this was in the first panel in the first page, things like that. If I make it, and it's so hard to dance around without giving spoilers.
Oh well, spoiler-free zone here. Bonus questions, John. Here we go. Just a couple. What are your plans for? We've kind of alluded to it a little bit. What you said. What are your plans for Heroic Tales going forwards? Is it to kind of get on the kind of half-yearly schedule, quarterly, get those 20 issues done, get to issue 10, launch Patriarch's own comic at number 1, that sort of thing?
Yeah, my goal is to tell the story that I want to tell. And in order to tell the story that I have to tell, I have to make a good comic that people want to buy. So is in a way, it's kind of selfish because Marvel and DC. I love superheroes. I love comic books. I love the medium, and
Us too.
like if I was satisfied playing this role playing game among friends, but now that ain't happening anymore. So now I'm telling the story as a comic book, and I just want to tell this. I think it's a good story. It's a good world. I've been playing with this world for 40 years. I'm not
Not
even
that long.
joking.
40 years.
Yeah, since the '82. I've been. It's all the same story. It's all the same universe.
It's all the same universe.
It's all
Wow.
the same
It's
universe.
all bottled up inside you. You want to get it out.
So like you know, it's Philip Manning is my friend Sean Manning's father. It's all drawn from real people. Like a lot of these characters are direct inspirations. The crazy reporter is an ex girlfriend.
Tread lightly and delicately, a delicate glass there. Oh
So
dear.
so I just have a lot of stories that I want to get out. So how do I tell these stories and get it to the conclusion that I want? It's got to be good, and it's got to be. It does. This sounds so SJW because like I don't care about the profit. I just want to be able to pay for the next book. I have that luxury. I'm Aaron Lopresti has that's his job. He's an artist. He has to make money to put his kids through college. So he's under a lot of pressure, and I understand that. And I respect that. I got reprimanded by a pro. I'm not going to mention names, but he was just like, "You're doing it wrong." He goes, "You only make like 1 or 2 pages. You do the crowd fund, and then you see if you can make the book." And I was like, "Okay, I'm not going to argue with them because that professional is not going to make a whole book and then announce it, and then it's going to flop, and then he's out of work." You know what I mean? So, but I have a job that pays my bills, so I'll launch it when I'm ready to launch, so I could have a shorter closing date, things like that.
You've kind of got you're coming at it from different.
Yeah, I have a different point of view, but I also I'm doing. I did $8,000 on my first comic. Arnold Presti's making hundreds of thousands of dollars. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, if I made hundreds of $1,000s, that would be great. I would hire so many people. I would have a comic every month. I have that much material. But there you go.
We wouldn't bet against you. How about we see where this heroic tales thing and the patriarch takes you? To me, you're getting good buzz. As we have to, I think we said to you on X, we said, for your first comic, or I think remember the comment we said, if you're getting 17%, if you're getting 17% from your follower turn throw, that's impressive because for anybody else to get 10 would have been decent. So for you to get 17-ish%
Yeah,
from your first campaign was astonishingly good.
yeah. And I sold a lot of copies in person too. That aren't on the campaign. Like the guys at work, they all bought copies. And it was really sweet. We opened.
Oh, listen,
We had
we,
like a signing. Like they all came in with their comics, and I had my Sharpie, and I signed all the comics. Bunch
we
of
had this idea in our head, just a team shot of you might like this idea. A team shot of you, your builder bros, construction bros at work with the hard hats on. They're all holding up Heroic Tales
Oh,
1.
that's a good idea.
And listen to this. This is the killer line. You want this? We'll give you it for free. We do a bit of salesman. We've got sales blood coursing through our veins, of course. We'd say, we're building America. I also built this comic. Something like that.
Or we're making this. No, we're building this building like we build comics, one story at a time.
There you go, something like that. So there you go. You've got an ad
That's good.
campaign, and get your guys behind you in the hard hats. They're all holding up a comic, and you're holding up your comic slightly in front. So that we think that story of you being a classically trained degree in classics alongside a construction hard hat job. That in fact that will speak to a lot of you call them in America blue collar workers, working
Yeah.
class workers, yeah. And we think that's the way to go, definitely. We'll look forward to seeing a promo shot with you and the guys from your construction job in that.
And the funny thing is, Boss Moxie was my foreman.
There you go.
Yeah, and
How about that?
he doesn't like the fact that he surrendered without a fight. But
Right then, we've got to ask you. It's tradition, of course, in the Azrael Church. Number 7. What's your favorite pizza, John?
a regular cheese pizza. Nothing beats a plain cheese New York style pizza, meaning thin crust, crispy. You fold it in half. You know, I was a part owner of a pizzeria for years. I love pizza. I
Oh,
worked, yeah, for 5 years. Like I said, I'm a walking New York stereotype, and I walk Italian from New York who made pizza. You know,
you're just a
and I
business
eat
guy,
pizza
aren't you?
every day. I still love pizza. Even
Mm,
bad pizza is good pizza. You know, it,
indeed.
I like Domino's. I know that's heaven forbid. I like Chicago style pizza.
Oh, Chicago, yes.
Yeah,
Do you do pineapple on pizza?
yeah, I do. It's not my favorite, but I
Yeah.
like the the ham with the pineapple on pizza once in a while. It's really good. I
What
know
about
that's
what about a
controversial,
chicken
guys.
and mushroom one? Thin and crispy chicken and mushroom.
Yep, that's awesome too. That's awesome too. The only things I don't like on pizza is anchovies and black olives. I
And
just don't like black olives. Anchovies and black olives are probably the only two things I don't like.
for us, it's jalapenos. Too hot.
Oh, you don't like? It's funny. I like jalapenos, but I don't like the texture of jalapenos. Spice doesn't bother me. There's a food truck right by my. I made friends with Hector, the guy who runs the food truck. He, I'll get my chicken tinga and my chorizo quesadillas and stuff, and it's got jalap. I don't know where he gets these jalapenos because they're normally little discs, but he cuts them long ways,
Oh,
so they almost look like green pepper. And that don't bother me. When they're in the green, when they're in the little disc, there's something about the texture of them that.
mm. What,
But
like
I'll eat.
little aliens.
I like them. Jalapenos, if they're cut that way, they don't bother me. But I'll eat ghost peppers. I'll eat spicy food. I make chili. My friends complain because it's too hot. And I'm like,
Too hot.
suck it up. I go to Thai food
We're
places.
mild mannered. If we have a curry, it's a bit chicken korma. But I tell you what, if you cooked it and we had a nice kind of beverage, whatever you're drinking, are you a Guinness kind of guy or just a straight beer kind of guy?
I'm a lager.
Lager.
Guinness is like drinking bread. I don't I don't like Guinness.
Also makes your belly extend a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Fermentation.
If you drink a Guinness, for me, there's no room for beer. There's no room for food.
There's no room for pizza. No,
Yeah,
it is the food.
fill in a glass. It's
You,
like drinking
you,
a
you
local.
could have it in a John's long box glass, couldn't you?
Yeah,
It's
yep.
one of your merches. Speaking of which, we have got. Where can people find out more about Heroic Tales?
Okay, well, like you got all my links right there. So I,
It's
I'm on
also
X.
in the chat.
Yeah, I'm on X. I post every day. I try to keep my X line as pleasant as possible.
Of course.
Online is a cesspool, so I'm human. I fail, and I say things I shouldn't say every once in a while. But for the most part, it's comic books, interesting things. I've been posting lately because I'm working in tunnels beneath Manhattan. I've been showing pictures. People seem to really like that. You know,
Yeah, those tunnels underground. Is that for the next apocalypse? We wonder.
well, it near in the 30s, there was a snowstorm, and all the power lines fell, and people got electrocuted. So in New York City, they passed a law that all power lines have to be underground. So it's funny because one of my friends was arguing with me. He goes, "No, I work in Manhattan. There's power lines." I go, "No, those aren't power lines. There's tension lines, but they're not power lines. All power. So there's tunnels underneath Manhattan for a bunch of reasons, for water, for plumbing, for steam, for heat, and for electricity. So there is probably more surface area underground Manhattan than RJ than
Oh,
above
okay.
ground. And they way below Manhattan, way below, like we're talking like 20 stories deeper than the Trade Center.
Whoa.
There's a huge tunnel that connects to a reservoir upstate New York, and that's where the water comes down. And there's guys down there that are called sandhogs, and it's yeah, their job is to drill these tunnels. They're like mole people, and there's not a lot of them, and it's like it's still like a family trade. So like they're all related, they're all cousins and stuff like that. So the sandhogs, there's nothing below them. They are the mole people, and every once in a while they need electricity too. So every once in a while we'll go into those. I was in those tunnels about 6 years ago, and that's why if you see that picture of a doorway that I put,
Yeah, we saw that. It was empty. Then there was all this stacks of stuff in it, medicine or something.
No, that was I just put that today or yesterday, but I reposted a picture of I just found a stairway carved out of rock. The it's like a Tolkien
Oh
thing.
yeah.
Yeah, there's an old rusted chain that keeps the door shut. Like that door could be 100 years old. Who knows what's behind that door? And I couldn't find it again. But I love that stuff, and I'm so mad that I didn't take more pictures when I was on that job.
Well, that's your reference for the subterranean. You give the reference to Renzo. That's your next story. Whenever you know.
And then
Reference
now
what?
I'm underneath this hospital complex. It's 18 buildings and it's all connected by tunnels, and a lot of them are just empty and spooky. But these ones are pretty well maintained. And I walked by, it's all empty, it's all empty. And then the other day, there's medical supplies. I'm like, what's going on? You know, why is there medical supplies being stored in this tunnel? And it's cool because you can see the tiling is all red, and then all of a sudden there's a branch, and this branch is white because it's another building. So another party was responsible for building that tunnel. So
Yeah.
you could see, okay, I must be crossing the street now. But then you could go below even that, and it's like Dungeons and Dragons. It's dark. You know, you need a lantern. You know, it's creepy. You know, and yes, there are homeless people that live in these tunnels. Why not? It's climate controlled. When you get that low, it's never that cold. It's never that hot. You know,
Just in between, climate controlled.
right? It's you're not getting rained on. You're not getting snowed on. So, you know,
There's another story in there. We're sensing great material for a story. It sounds all very enigmatic and mysterious, John. It absolutely does. Listen, we know you've got a special day lined up with your significant special other, who we would say is a special part of your storytelling journey and understands you for the utter gentleman and diamond geezer, as we say here in the UK, guy that you are. So we have been. It's lovely just sit and listen to a genuine storyteller. We'd like to thank you for being our special guest, John Bua.
thank you.
We wish you very well and Godspeed. You're an earnest, genuine storyteller who's been on this journey to tell his tale over 40 years now. And we can sense your passion and that you're committed to the cause. So, John Bua, it's just been a pleasure and an honor.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun. I can't believe we spoke for 3 hours.
Well, yes, and please like, comment, subscribe to John's Longbox and our good selves. And now it is time, if you can find the trailer. Here we go. Here we go. And there's time. And we wish you very well. Have a good day with your special